Good evening, everyone. The April 9th, 2015 regular meeting, number 17, of the Fairfax County School Board will now come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, a moment of silence, and the performance of the National Anthem by Spring Hill Elementary School Select Band under the direction of Dan Freeman. Yes, Dr.
Madam
Garza.
Chairman, there goes the principal right there, the proud principal at Spring Hill Elementary School. Mr. Vanderhyde, take a bow, take a bow,
wonderful.
take a bow. I want to thank all the parents that were here tonight and allowed us to enjoy your children. I visited Spring Hill Elementary School just a few weeks ago, and what a great school. So I know that the reason is we have such great students, wonderful and supportive parents, and what a great staff and faculty we have there. So congratulations to all of you. Thank you for being here tonight.
And Madam Chairman, can I just also offer my note of thanks to the parents. These wonderful students, our wonderful music program, and this is what it looks like when we support the arts in our elementary schools. Thank you very much, Spring Hill community.
Mr. Velkoff.
And I have to say, I thought when we heard them tuning, I thought I was at a performance of the Magic Flute. And as for the conductor, I think the PTA should buy him a baton.
You know, that's very hard to do.
That
You
is.
know, that was really impressive.
Ms. McLaughlin has a comment as well.
I just have to brag that the conductor is actually a Woodson parent, and it was wonderful to see a recognizable face doing such a great job with those young people. And what an impressive performance tonight.
And thank you all for coming. We do appreciate you sharing your children with us so much. Thank you. Next, I have the certification of our second closed meeting in order to comply with Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia. It's necessary for the school board to certify that since the Fairfax County School Board convened a closed meeting on April 9th, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during the closed meeting. Do I have a motion? Ms. Hines, seconded by Ms. Smith. All those in favor? The motion is unanimous. A few announcements before we begin tonight's meeting. The board, as I just said, held a closed meeting earlier this evening prior to the public hearing, and we will continue the closed meeting after tonight's regular meeting. The agenda item pertaining to the award of contract for the provision and replacement of the automatic temperature control system at Park Lawn Elementary School has been removed from tonight's meeting agenda because the procurement for this project was canceled by the Department of Facilities and Transportation Services in accordance with Section 2.2-4319 of the Virginia Procurement Act. The reasons for this action are that 1, no bid was received within the budgeted funds for this project, and 2, the level of competition for this procurement as represented by the fact that only 1 bid was received did not in the department's judgment serve the best interest of Fairfax County Public Schools and the public on this occasion. If you would like to review a copy of the agenda and any agenda item that is being discussed tonight, that information is on the table in the back by the auditorium entrance. You may access tonight's agenda and related meeting documents by going to the FCPS website and selecting on School Board and then Upcoming Meetings and Agendas. The meeting is also being streamed live by the FCPS website homepage. Click on Watch School Board Live. I ask you to please turn off or silence your cell phones, and I will now call on Mr. Lateef for announcements.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We are recognizing National Volunteer Week. That's April the 12th to the 18th. Established in 1974, National Volunteer Week has grown exponentially in scope each year since, drawing the support and endorsement of all subsequent U.S. presidents, governors, mayors, and other respected elected officials. National Volunteer Week is about inspiring, recognizing, and encouraging people to seek out imaginative ways to engage in their communities. It's about demonstrating to the nation that by working together in unison, we have the fortitude to meet our challenges and accomplish our goals. National Volunteer Week is about taking action, encouraging individuals and their respective communities to be at the center of social change, discovering and actively demonstrating their collective power to foster positive transformation. During the 2013-14 school year, 133 schools, centers, and alternative high schools reported that 34,652 volunteers donated 670,764 hours of volunteer service to Fairfax County Public Schools. We would also like to recognize some Boy Scouts in the audience. First from Troop 160, based in Chantilly. He is working on his Citizenship in the Community Merit Badge. Please stand. And from Troop 990, based out of North Springfield, Virginia, they are working on their Communications Merit Badge. Thank you for coming.
Before we go on to our next agenda item, I have one additional announcement. And we have somebody who's very special to us here on the school board, and she is leaving. So on behalf of the school board, I would like to take a moment to recognize our deputy clerk, Lizette Torres Bartel. Lizette is leaving FCPS at the end of April to become the executive assistant to our competitor, well, not really, but Dr. Pat Murphy, superintendent of Arlington County Public Schools. So tonight is her last school board meeting with us. Lizette has been with FCPS for 9.5 years. She spent the last 3.5 years in our school board office, and prior to that, she worked in the Department of Special Services and the Superintendent's Hearing Office. Lizette, you have done an outstanding job in your role as deputy clerk. We will miss your smiling face and your can-do, absolutely get-it-done attitude. We wish you well on your new journey, and we thank you for your years of service here to FCPS, and especially to the 12 of us. Good luck. We'll really miss you, and would like to take a picture with you before you leave. Next is Agenda Item 2.04, the resolution supporting the Virginia Education Association and PTA Put Kids First campaign. And I'd like to call on Ms. Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I would like to invite Kimberly Adams, President of the Fairfax Education Association, and Debbie Kilpatrick, President of the Fairfax County Council of PTAs, to come forward. It's time to change the conversation about public education, particularly the funding of public schools. It's time to talk about investment, investing in our children, who truly are our future. The Virginia PTA and Virginia Education Association have joined together to change the conversation in Virginia about what it really means to support students in public schools. Now is the time to show the Virginia General Assembly that, as our state's economic prospects grow, the needs of our students must come first. It is my pleasure to read this resolution supporting the Virginia Education Association and Virginia Parent-Teacher Association Put Kids First campaign. Whereas the Commonwealth has no more precious resource than its children, and whereas public schools represent our best opportunity to lift up this generation of Virginia students to achieve to their full potential and prepare to begin high-skill careers in Virginia's new economy, and whereas the state of Virginia has allowed funding of pre-K through 12 public education to drop 17% in state aid per pupil in the last 5 years, some 51,000 jobs in pre-K through 12 education have been cut since 2009. And whereas 2/3 of Virginia 3- and 4-year-olds in low-income households are not enrolled in a preschool program, and whereas the Virginia Education Association and the Virginia Parent-Teacher Association have launched a campaign called Put Kids First to mobilize Virginians to rekindle support for children in public schools. Therefore, be it resolved that the Fairfax County School Board supports the call to action initiated by the Virginia Education Association and the Virginia Parent-Teacher Association through the Put Kids First campaign. And be it further resolved that the Fairfax County School Board encourages the attendance of parents and community members, school employees, and any others supporting the worthy goals of the Put Kids First campaign at the rally at the Capitol in Richmond on Saturday, April the 18th. I so move.
Seconded by Mr. Velkoff. All those in favor? The vote is absolutely unanimous.
At this time, I would ask both Kimberly and Debbie if they would like to make some brief remarks, and then we'll join you on the risers for a photograph. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that's the quickest vote I've ever seen from this board. So thank you all for your support of this resolution to put kids first in Fairfax County. FCPS now joins other school districts around the state who have adopted this resolution and stand firm in the belief that the Virginia General Assembly has the ability to transform the lives of our children across the Commonwealth by providing a high-quality public education from preschool to graduation, and it must be a priority. This is why Virginia PTA and Virginia Education Association have joined together to create Put Kids First. We have heard from teachers and parents from across the state about the challenges their families and students are facing due to the lack of state support for public education. We invite everyone who believes in putting the needs of our children and our public schools first to join us by getting on the bus to Richmond on April 18th. Families are welcome to attend, as there will be many kid-friendly activities and students will learn the value of advocacy. Kimberly.
You know that every year in my recent memory, our budget discussions with the Board of Supervisors include the same refrain from our elected officials that the state of Virginia is not fulfilling its responsibility. So that responsibility falls to the county level. We hear that we should march on Richmond and instead of the county government center. Yesterday afternoon, we had a rally asking our supervisors for support in Fairfax, but we do agree we need to march on Richmond. Richmond will hear from us on April 18th when we fill buses around the state with educators and community members concerned about the lack of support our students receive in the state budget. We have not demanded enough from our elected leaders, nor from ourselves. We must put an end to the excuses. The Put Kids First campaign will mobilize thousands of Virginians to demand that Virginia's elected leaders place the needs of our children and public schools first. The VEA and the PTA and communities and school boards around the state are together with strong voices to tell our legislators this. We ask you to join us on April 18th, and you can go to goodforvirginia.org/putkidsfirst to call the FEA office to reserve a spot on one of our buses. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Don't go away. It's time for a photograph.
All right, next is item 2.05, and we have recognition of National Library Week and School Library Month. And before I call on one of my colleagues, I just want to say thank you to all the librarians who are here tonight with us. And you were so kind as to provide sweets for us, sweet treats, and you can't know how much we appreciate that, because we all have wonderful sweet tooths. We appreciate the time and energy it takes to make homemade treats, and we're going to be here late tonight just appreciating you more and more. So thank you. And now I call on Ms. Smith.
I'm really pleased to read this announcement about National Library Week and School Library Month, April 2015. National Library Week is a national observance sponsored by the American Library Association and libraries across the country each April. It is a time to celebrate the contributions of our nation's libraries and librarians and to promote library use and support. All types of libraries, school, public, academic, and special, participate. This year, National Library Week will be observed April 12 through 18 with the theme, Unlimited Possibilities at Your Library. School Library Month is the American Association of School Librarians' celebration of school librarians and their programs. Every April, school librarians are encouraged to create activities to help their school and local community celebrate the essential role that strong school library programs play in a student's educational career. The school board welcomes this opportunity to commend Fairfax County Public Schools librarians and to express its gratitude for the energy, knowledge, and vision that they tirelessly and unselfishly provide to the school system. We really are so appreciative of everything you do. I do believe that libraries are the core of our schools, and students learn so much, not just reading books, but how to research, and it's a hub for the school. And we appreciate the snacks, and if more board members than usual leave the table, you know why. And I'm sad this year that we didn't get a chance to do a reception like we usually do, because board members really value getting the time to talk to you one-on-one. So hopefully next year we'll have a better time to do that. But I would like to invite all the librarians and
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. I spoke too fast.
Okay, we have one more comment, Mr.
Okay.
Falco.
I just want to say that between 1980 and 1985, I worked as a librarian at Indiana University. I was in the music library. I actually did a little cataloging. And I also spent some time in the serials department. And 34 years ago, I met my wife in the serials department in a library. So just want you all to know that sometimes romance can begin in a library.
You're just going to call them up there? Okay, so now come down for pictures, librarians and instructional services staff. Yay!
All right, our next order of business is citizen participation. Speakers are requested to limit their remarks to not more than 3 minutes and provide at least 16 copies of their presentation for distribution to the board. The school board will not hear statements involving issues that have been scheduled for public hearings, such as capital improvement, budget and boundaries, or personal attacks on any person. Complaints regarding individual students or school-based employees should be directed to the appropriate school principal or other school official. If the concern is a group concern, please consider appointing a spokesperson, and while the spokesperson is speaking, those in support may stand to show their support. Tonight, one citizen has signed up to address the board, Mr. George Becerra.
Good evening again, round two, right? I wanted to talk to you about, I know you have your retreat this weekend on the strategic plan. So I want to make sure my advocacy has been consistent throughout the last year and a half of you drafting it or with HYA and the whole completion of this. Again, I want to make sure that the Closing Achievement Gap Plan is in the strategic plan. Okay, I understand we talk about, I understand it might be in the action plans, I understand that, but the community does not understand that as much as I do. Let's be honest, it's optics. What do they read up front? They do not see the Closing Achievement Gap, the 2.0 that MSAOC has worked with the superintendent and the committee that she's formed. Okay, so with that said, you know, making sure that's in, with momentum or priority schools initiative also wrapped in there somehow. Also a goal 5 with the strategic plan for the Board of Supervisors. You guys have heard it 5,000 times. Economic success through education and social equity. So I want a win-win here. But at the same time, let's be honest, it's election year. At-large members, Mr. Moon, Mr. McElveen, Mr. Velkoff, represent the whole county. A majority minority school system, if you do not get the concrete drivers that we put in as MSAOC, that we to really collaboratively have done this. Okay, we represent NAACP and many other members and organizations. Let's go district by district. Ms. Reed, Democratic District. The message you would send if you do not put that into the strategic plan. Ms. Hines and Ms. Darnak Kofax, hard Board of Supervisors relationships there if you guys do not go through with this, you know, in terms of the districts you represent and the populations that are there. Ms. Smith and Mr. Stork, good luck on your future endeavors. But the people that are going to replace you, if your community does not see the closing achievement gap in that, who the next representative will be. Okay? As much as it might lean one way or another, that message comes out, it can easily switch. Ms. Strauss, hard district already. You don't need the Herndon folks to come out and make the difference to just one issue or change the whole composition maybe of the board and the way it's going. So I just want to make sure that's in this look. I understand the superintendent, and I don't know implications or imply anything that she's not going to put this, but I look at you as elected officials to put that in there and make sure the message is stamped. I don't need in-house fighting on the closing achievement gap plan into the strategic plan. I need y'all to come through with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Becerra. Next, agenda item 3.02, Student Achievement Goal 2, develop essential life skills, and Student Achievement Goal 3, demonstrate responsibility to the community and the world, monitoring report. And I see Miss Jane Licht is at the podium. Welcome.
Hello. Good evening. Thank you for having us this evening as we highlight and showcase our work and collaboration related to Goal 2, Essential Life Skills, and Goal 3, Responsibility to the Community and the World. We're excited about this work as it provides the tenets for and focus on the whole child. The Goals 2 and 3 committee members are here with us and will be happy to join me in answering any questions you may have at the end of the presentation. Now, they did not want to go in this peanut gallery behind here in terms of following directions, so anyone here associated with Goals 2 and 3 this evening, would you please stand up, get a little exercise? Thank you for being here. We really appreciate all of your work. And you'll be hearing from several of them in a few moments. So in the interest of time, we have posted for your review the full written goal narrative reports with all the related data. And we're not going to discuss this data in depth tonight at this time, unless of course you want to, as there have not been a lot of changes to it from last year. Instead, this evening, our presentation will focus on our goal-related initiatives in the schools, and the accompanying PowerPoint and school presentations will highlight several programs, events, activities, and practices that relate to our important established goals. You'll be hearing from 4 of our school communities who wish to share with you the new and exciting work that they are doing in these areas. And through these exciting presentations, you'll see the relevant and meaningful work come to life. I ask that you look at the crosswalk document that's located at the beginning of the reports as a reference in terms of how each of these initiatives relate to the designated goals 2 and 3. And we'll be using these documents to enhance our efforts as we further develop the work of the Portrait of a Graduate in the upcoming months and years to come. So first this evening, we would like to highlight and feature the initiatives at Holland Meadows Elementary School that address these outlined goals, 3.2 and 2.3. Highlighted activities for these include their weekly all-school community and responsive classroom meetings. We also want to talk about sub-goal 3.4, exercising good stewardship in the environment, and that is reinforced through the school's established ecosystems, recycling, and upcoming cycling programs. And finally, activities that support sub-goal 2.7 include the creation of their community market, and this is a venue where they serve food prepared from their garden and also sell their student handmade items. You will find more information about these initiatives in the narrative reports, and Holland Meadows invites you to visit their school soon. Our second featured school this evening and guest speakers are from Hunters Woods Elementary School, and they will highlight their work related to Subgoal 2.7, Practical Life Skills. Tonight, we welcome Assistant Principal Felicia Drake and Resource Teacher G. Hahn, as they have been instrumental in working with Principal Emily Cope to collaborate with school and community agency personnel to provide Mind in the Making training for their staff and parents. These efforts have enabled them to help students further develop their identified essential life skills. These essential life skills include focus and self-control, perspective taking, communicating, making communications, critical thinking, taking on challenges, and self-directed engaged learning. Current researchers emphasize that these critical skills must be fostered to promote student learning. The development of these strengths allows students to more readily access learning opportunities and experiences. And the beauty of this work is that it can be promoted and reinforced by staff and parents alike. So we welcome our two guest speakers here from Hunters Woods Elementary.
Good evening. My name is Ji-an, and I'm the Math and Science Resource Teacher at Hunters Woods Elementary School. And as Ms. Lipt has announced, I'm with my assistant principal, Felicia Drake, and we're delighted to share with you the work that we're doing around Ellen Galinsky's Mind in the Making. So our story begins about 2 years ago, where a third grade teacher, my principal, Emily Cope, and I attended a training for Mind in the Making. And we came back with tremendous enthusiasm to share the practical approaches to our parent community and our staff. So what we did was last summer, we developed a parent group, and we invited the parents in our community to join us for evening sessions to go over the modules. There are 7 of them, not including the introduction. And the group ended up being incredibly culturally diverse. It represented the parents from our magnet program, our community school, and the advanced academics program parents as well, and ranging from kindergarten to 6th grade. So I wanted to read some comments and feedback that we have received from the parents. So one parent wrote, I want to thank you for offering this opportunity to us parents. We are very much impressed with this concept and enjoyed being a part of this community. Another parent wrote, we especially appreciate your initiative in this field, leadership approach, commitment and enthusiasm in educating parents on this very important aspect, which I may say most parents struggle in one area or the other. And it's the feedback like this, informal and formal, that we received that informed our next steps. So Felicia will talk about our next steps as a community.
Good evening, everyone. So as we approached looking at how we can incorporate these great ideas into our community, one of the things that our principal, Emily Cope, has helped develop, our school will be in the process of training some of our own teachers next week, as well as teachers from other community areas, other schools. We also have decided to invite one of our local preschool directors to come out and get the training and to learn about these ideas so that we can start. We know, as the PTA initiative was stated, that we want to start very early with our kids. So this is a way that we can get our community involved as well as our other schools in the area. Also, this summer, we thought that we wanted to do something for our own students, rising kindergartners. So we will offer a team of teachers at our school that will come over and develop some trainings, and we will do some modules for the parents that are coming into kindergarten. Again, we want to make sure that as they enter into kindergarten, we prepare them for success. So our principal feels very strongly that this is the way to go for the community. In addition to our principal, Emily Cope, we also have Dr. Manui of Lake Ann. They're looking at doing a partnership to also inform the rest of the community as well. So our principal's goal and our in the area is to make sure that the greater Reston community, as well as the Fairfax County community, is able to take advantage of these wonderful things. This summer we'll be also working with the SALT program, and one of the things that we thought that students needed, especially the primary students, was a chance to participate in circle games that will help to inform them and improve their executive functioning skills. And lastly, our regional assistant superintendent, Mr. Douglas Tyson, and our principal are working to get our area assistant principals and other leadership trained in these modules as well. So we're very excited. We are looking forward to continuing just learning more and helping our students succeed in life. And we thank you for this opportunity.
To highlight the work of one of our middle schools, we bring you initiatives from Rachel Carson Middle School. They have exemplified Subgoal 2.9, making healthy and safe life choices, and Subgoal 3.4, exercising good stewardship of the environment through the creation of the ESOL Student Garden Club. Students here are active participants in the planning and caring of the garden on a daily basis. They also want to share that they have created through the health education and family and consumer sciences teachers a developed elective course called Wellness for Life. Through this course and focused collaboration, annual activities engage the school community in an organized focus on wellness. We move on now, and we know that the development of executive functioning skills is important in early childhood as well as for students as they grow older. Last summer, we brought together instructional and student services staff representing pre-K through 12th grade to focus on the topic of executive functioning. We sought to identify common language, review current curriculum, determine additional curriculum needs, and make plans for creating and implementing this exciting curriculum. The committee also suggested that the following categories of executive functioning be included: cognitive flexibility and shifting, goal-directed persistence, self-control, attention and focus, working memory, and metacognition. Mountain View High School staff was an integral part of this work, and over the past several years, they have been committed to a school-wide effort to incorporate or infuse the use of executive functioning skills into their instructional program and daily routines. Recently, they have been invited to several other schools in our district to present their work and findings. Here with us this evening are several of the staff members from the school. Please welcome Molly Flatley, Special Education Department Chair, Pat Garvey, Social Studies Department Chair, Ann Hoffman, Math Department Chair, Jeff Jones, Science Teacher, Tim McElroy, Special Ed Teacher, Michelle O'Hanlon, ESOL Department Chair. They will highlight for you their work in planning and implementing the executive functioning initiatives at their school site.
Good evening. So what we've done is we developed a series of lessons designed to integrate executive functioning into the daily classroom. Executive functioning refers to a set of cognitive skills we all use every day. Most closely associated with the frontal lobe of the brain, executive functioning refers to the cueing and coordinating activities of the brain. A useful analogy is an orchestra conductor or an air traffic controller. As Dr. Jack Niglieri, who's been assisting us with this work, was fond of saying, executive function is how we do what we do. You know, what our group is trying to do is highlight the impact and the role of executive functioning in the classroom on a daily basis. And we want to facilitate these skills in our students to make them more reflective and more metacognitive learners. In essence, we want to bring the how and place it right along with the what in the classroom. Entirely aligned with the program of studies Executive functioning describes the cognitive skills our children are going to need to navigate a very fluid and dynamic future beyond their experience with FCPS.
We expect students to be able to organize their materials, adjust their schedules, work towards goals, ignore distractions, and reflect on their performance to do better the next time. We also know employers expect these same high levels of executive function skills. These skills must be explicitly taught and must be taught in context. Now think forward to the project-based assessment initiatives. In order to achieve on a project-based assessment, to be able to manage a long-term project with multiple milestones, to make numerous revisions, to start over or significantly change the original proposal, a student must have high levels of executive function skill.
Using EF as a framework for interactions with students positively affects the culture of the classroom. The language of EF allows teachers to ask students about their classroom performance and behaviors in a value-free way, encouraging students to first reflect and then discuss their actions with teachers. When incorporating EF into instruction, a teacher shifts away from making statements about students and towards asking reflective questions of them. Unlike a request or a statement, the EF questions lead to discussions about student performance and behavior. These discussions are opportunities for constructive criticism and relationship building. They facilitate collaboration between teacher and student towards the common goal of students becoming more reflective and independent learners. Over the course of the 4 years, 5 years now, we've been implementing our approach. Teachers have found it to be extremely beneficial, and our small group has grown into a school-wide initiative. No teacher who has joined our group has ever discontinued incorporating EF instruction into the culture of their classroom.
I teach Algebra 2 at Mountain View, and initially when I agreed to be part of the group and we discussed implementing and teaching these EF lessons in our classrooms, I was incredibly hesitant to do it. I teach Algebra 2 SOL classes. I find it a difficult and an extreme challenge every semester to cover all the content I need to cover with enough time, you know, with the snow days and the absences. And so I was very hesitant, and adding additional curriculum to this content, which was a very tight schedule, I felt like it was going to be overwhelming. So that first semester, I decided to only teach it to one of my classes, and it went very well. I did not feel like the way we had set up the lessons, like I was adding a lot more curriculum. What happened, I really ended up just changing the way I dealt with my students, and I taught Algebra 2. And what I was doing was just really identifying the needs for the skills within my curriculum and making the students become aware of that, and them also becoming aware of the choices they were making. Were they using the skills or not? So since that semester, which was a few semesters back, I have been teaching the EF lessons to all of my classes every semester.
Hello, I teach ESOL at Mountain View. I also teach pre-service and in-service teachers at George Mason University. And I know the most powerful tool for the practitioner is a reflective practice. If we don't stop and think deeply about our work, we're not moving forward and influencing the academic progress of our students. At the core of executive functioning skills is metacognition. You have to stop and think about your thinking. But in our framework, we do it with our students. It's joint learning. It's a journey together. And in the framework that we have, the questions that we ask the students are very purposeful. So it's not just global, oh, how did the lesson go today? But I can take those questions and I can break it down not only for the class, but I can look individually at my students and I can think about how did my lesson affect Adonias today? How did it affect Elizabeth today? And are they becoming stronger not only in the content area, but are they working on developing those executive functioning skills that they need in my class, other classes, and their lives beyond? Also, what's really important about what we've created here is we have a culture of sharing across the team. And that when I'm reflecting on my practice, I know I can go to the other team members, share what I'm doing, hear from them, and we feel confident in what we're doing. Not that everything is perfect, but we have ears, and we can share with one another the practices and learn and grow from one another. And it's inherent in the framework that's been created. Thank you.
Good evening. So as a special education teacher, I sit in lots of meetings with parents, lots of days, and executive functioning has given us a language, and it has changed the way that we have conversations with our parents. We have a common language now that focuses on concrete and observable skills, essential skills that can be taught across settings and extend beyond the classroom. The executive functioning allows the schools and the families to truly work together towards that common goal of creating independent and reflective learners. And so we would like to end, obviously, with our students. What's happening here? Talking about executive functioning.
Guess you have to think about what you're doing, how you're doing it, what you're doing to get to what you need to accomplish. It's very important too, because you use it everywhere, inside of school, outside of school.
When I played football, I had to use working memory a lot to remember what I need to do on my assignments on every play and stuff like that. So working memory is, it's something you should work on every day of your life, I think, and you should only get better at it.
I feel like I use it more often now. I catch myself using it more often, to be honest. I think I've been using it my whole life. It's just now that I know about it, I just know I'm using it more.
To pay attention to what you're doing, and you realize like it's better to pay attention and see what you're doing and how you're doing it, to see if like it doesn't work, then you can change it, instead of like just not recognizing it.
Thank you for your time.
This evening, we also welcome from West Potomac High School Principal Alex Case and Systems of Support Advisor Jeremiah Ross. They are here to describe their efforts this year to train their entire school staff in the use of restorative justice practices. They will discuss their use of restorative circles to resolve conflicts and to deal with behavior, while also finding additional positive techniques and strategies that students can use when interacting with peers and adults. This work is reflective of our goals outlined on the PowerPoint slide. Gentlemen?
We definitely feel that there's no more essential life skill than for students to resolve their own interpersonal conflicts. And so when Dr. Garza and Department of Special Services leaders like Dr. Lipp and Dr. Jakolski presented us with data on disproportionality and discipline, such as our suspensions for fighting, particularly with Hispanic and Black students, we wanted to do something about it. And our strategy was to train, starting with one team, and now several teams in level 1 and then level 2 restorative justice techniques. That's allowing us as adults to take ownership and help our students take ownership over their actions and be able to end automatic out-of-school suspensions for some infractions like fighting. The real change for us was when the board adopted an extra position in a difficult budget year, and that was the System of Support Advisor, or SOSA. The real change for us was when our SOSA was able to come and take the restorative justice circles, both for attendance as well as for incidents like fighting, and really help us dig deeper into problems that our students were experiencing and really allow them to take that ownership over their actions. West Potomac SOSA, who's going to tell you just a little bit about his work, was the first SOSA in FCPS to be certified level 2 in restorative justice, and he works almost 9 to 5 on dealing with students in the circle context while taking care of other stuff before and after school. It's not that APs and counselors in our buildings aren't capable of helping students with this aspect of essential life skills. The SOSA is a position that is transformative in really being able to take it to the next level of conflict resolution. And for the first time in our school, our teachers are reporting that kids are solving problems and they're not coming back. So I asked Jeremiah to tell you a little bit about his experience with students, perhaps even just this week.
All right. Well, thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it. Yeah, this is my first year. I'm new to Fairfax County, so everything has been a big learning experience. And starting with the SOSA position, which is new, and Mr. Case has been extremely supportive. Dr. Jakowski has been awesome. And I really, really jumped in and with both feet with our restorative justice program and with Vicki Shope and learning from her and Miss Moore as well. And what we've been able to do at West Potomac, we've had about 18 restorative justice cases. Some fights, some just altercations, all sorts of different things. And as Mr. Case spoke on, each one will take anywhere from 3 to 8 hours worth of time, depending on how many we have involved in the cases. And I think the best way to kind of give you a description of kind of what's gone on, we had one that I just finished up just before spring break. We had 2 young ladies, 2 young men. The 2 young men got into a fight over the girls, and it was funny. We bring them in. I pre-conference with each one individually, and then once we're done with that, we come in and we meet as a circle. We talk about the boundaries. We talk about all the different things that go along with it. And at the beginning of the circle, they were all looking at they wouldn't look at each other. They got their eyes down. They're talking about he, she, this, that, and the other. No eye contact. They couldn't, deal with the situation. By the time we're done with the circle, they're using each other's names. They're looking at each other eye to eye and organically apologized. And it was just, it's a very uplifting experience to be part of it and to see them deal with their problems, their situations. And then the other thing we've had within the 18 that we've done, we've had no reoccurrences. And that's been the biggest thing. And I think also throughout the training that we went through with the SOSA stuff and understanding, Dr. Garza's position of, wanting, the students to be in class and to learn. And so that's been the biggest difference because, in the past, we would have suspended them 4 or 5 days, and really they wouldn't have learned anything. They would have stayed at home and played Xbox or PlayStation, and come back, and then that stuff's still hanging over their heads. Where now it's not. We'll have them maybe come in for a day of in-school suspension, but the goal is to keep them in the classroom and to deal with their problems and work out solutions. And that's what we've been able to do with the support of Mr. Case and all our assistant principals. And so I've just been really, I love it. I think it's great. I've been, continually watching our students improve and deal with these situations. And so that's kind of a snapshot of what we're doing. And I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you.
Our final presentation this evening, there we go, features McLean High School. Joining us are Principal Ellen Riley, Director of Student Services Paul Stansberry, School Psychologist Beth Werfel, and students Lauren Jewell and Jack Holland. They're here to share with you their recent 3-year journey of identifying and implementing events, activities, and training related to promoting mental health and wellness in the McLean community. This work illuminates and emphasizes the importance of students developing resiliency, making healthy and safe life choices, and being respectful and contributing members of the school and community. I give you the McLean staff.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight to talk about such an important topic, is really the mental well-being of our students. When we started discussing this, we first started talking about what is it that we do to make everything better. And what we do is we listen and we learn. And we started listening 3 years ago when we all came together, and we really started with the PTSA, and they started telling us the needs of our students. And we looked at our data, we looked at the survey data, and we really delved into it. And then we started implementing some programs. But the critical piece of it is not just to do the programs and be one and done. It's important to go back and listen to what was successful, what needs to be improved upon, and how can we make it better. So we also started incorporating our students. What did you feel we needed? We listened to our families and our teachers because they know our students best, and they also needed to be having training. So what we're going to show you tonight is what we've been through the last 3 years. Mr. Stansberry is going to go over a brief overview of where we were and where we have gone to. And then you're going to hear from Beth Werfel, our school psychologist, and 2 of our students, Jack Holland and Lauren Jewell, and they're going to discuss 2 of our programs that we're most proud of at McLean. What I want to say on my part is the easy part. I have people who bring me ideas, and if they fit the criteria that we need, I say yes. It's the easiest thing to do. But the people behind me are the ones who have to bring me the ideas, they organize it, they plan it, and they implement it. And they're the ones that I have the utmost respect for because they really get down and they do what's best for our students. So I'm going to turn it over to them and let you hear what they get to do every day.
All right, thank you very much. As Dr. Riley said, we started 3 years ago, and we had heard a lot from our PTSA, and we had seen our youth survey data, and we knew that we wanted to do some things to really reduce the stress in our community. So that first year, we started out with a handful of things that you see up on the screen there. I'm not going to talk about all of this because it would take all night, but so we started a depression screening, which we call Acknowledge, Care, and Tell. We developed a lesson around that we really think drives the points home to our students and really helps them use those skills. We initiated an Active Minds organization that first year. We brought in a variety of speakers, and we had some parent programs as well. And as Dr. Riley said, we continued to listen and learn from what we were doing. And the following year, you can see we added quite a bit of programming. We created a new way to present our youth survey data to our community. We involved our elementary schools and our middle school in a pyramid panel so to present the data and to get parents at all different levels to come out and hear about it. We had some new speakers that came into the school, and we also worked with our Safe Community Coalition and PTSA to bring in evening programs, both at the school and in the community. That year, we were really lucky to be able to get our psychologist and social worker as full-time employees at McLean, which has been very helpful in delivering these programs. And we sent our first batch of kids that year to the mental health first aid training. And then this year we have just continued to develop and expand our programming. We're still doing the Acknowledge, Care, and Tell every year. We're bringing in new and different speakers on a variety of mental health topics. This year we added some faculty and staff trainings to our program. We started yoga and mindfulness for both our students and our faculty. And we've sent additional students to the mental health first aid. So that's just a very brief overview. And I'll let Ms. Werfel talk next.
Well, school psychologists get to do a lot of cool stuff. But what I love most about being a school psychologist is having the opportunity to help foster resiliency in youth. At McLean, I've been able to do this by teaching others about mental health, as well as planning and implementing wellness activities. And Dr. Riley makes this really easy because we just go to her and say, can we do this, this, and this? And she says, yes, yes, and yes. So that's just makes everything run really smoothly. For the past 2 years, select McLean students have participated in the Youth Mental Health First Aid Program, and this program does provide an overview of mental health disorders that impact teens, such as anxiety, depression, and eating disorders. And it also teaches participants what to do if they think a peer needs help or is in crisis, which I think is one of the most important parts of that program. This year, we offered the Youth mental health first aid training to students, and we also offered to all of our peer mentors, which we call at McLean McLeaders or Big Macs. We trained all of them on mental health disorders, and then also what to do if they think a peer needs help. And as Mr. Stansbury said, we use the ACT technique, acknowledge, care, and tell. And that acronym has become a part of the vocabulary at McLean among the students and staff. So Jack's going to talk a little bit more about the mental health training, and then Lauren will be talking about our Active Minds Club. And this has been really fun for me to be a part of because it is so healthy and get to work with so many just wonderful students who are passionate about what they do and are brave and, you know, are just willing to put in a lot of extra time to make this club work. So Lauren will talk a little bit about that. And Lauren was also great about putting together some goodie bags for all of you. So I hope you enjoy them. And I see that Dr. Garza has her Laugh More pin on. In the goodie bags are just some examples of materials that we use with students or with staff. And the bubble wrap that's in there is always a big hit. So enjoy. And Jack, your turn.
Good evening. As Ms. Warfel mentioned, we have a program at McLean called Big Macs, and I'm going to take a quick second to talk about that tonight. So our Big Mac program is comprised of 500 freshman Little Macs, about 120 junior or senior Big Macs, 16 senior execs, and our two wonderful leaders, Ms. Lane and Mrs. Stavish. Now, this program is designed to facilitate relationships among all involved and create avenues for teaching, learning, and leading as we attempt to ease the freshman's transition to high school. Simply put, this program changes lives. Now, I've been involved in it the entire time that I've been at McLean, and I am so thankful that I was. Freshman year, I had a conversation with an exec, and originally I was very intimidated to talk to him. He was a senior, he was a big guy, he was incredible at sports, but as soon as I started talking to him, I realized that he couldn't have been nicer. He is just the most genuine, down-to-earth gentleman that I've ever met, and he wanted to talk to everyone and anyone, even little freshman me. And he made me feel honestly welcome to the school that I was so new at. And ever since, I've really tried to live my life in a way where I think about others and do my best to be genuine and inclusive like he was to me. If he hadn't talked to me, my life would have certainly gone on, but I'm confident that it would have been so incredibly different. But for some, being noticed, being recognized, being genuinely appreciated really does mean the difference in their life. For some, life wouldn't have gone on if he hadn't had that conversation. Now, once a month, Big Macs and execs are graced by the training of Deb and Dana, two consultants from Core Training, who help to guide us and convey our message from Big Macs to from execs to Big Macs to Little Macs. Now, every year, Deb recounts a heart-wrenching story of her personal life from her childhood and adolescence, and the hardship and suffering that she suffered as a child was just more than anyone should have to bear over their entire lifetime. And after 16 years of putting up with it, Deb couldn't take it anymore, and she had decided that she was going to kill herself that night. But she didn't. She impacts the lives of tens of thousands of people, myself included, because one senior who she hardly knew sat with her at lunch one day. And this is exactly why we're doing our Big Mac mental health training, is to be prepared for a situation that could be very similar to that. Now, what we did was Ms. Warfel taught the 16 execs, who then taught 120 Big Macs, who then watched for and partially taught the 500 freshmen. So we really took it all the way from the top, all the way through our entire school system, and to try to start from the bottom and really have a good system as we're going through. The first thing that we did was we asked the group what they thought were some signs and symptoms of different mental health disorders, particularly anxiety, stress, and depression. And they came up with a definition for each, which we could then compare to an established definition. Now, what I found was most interesting was how many different people responded. It wasn't just a few people who understood or knew. It was everyone. Everyone had a working knowledge of what depression was, what stress, anxiety, and really that's because it's touched their lives. It's touched so many of my friends and so many of my peers' lives because either them or their friends have dealt with these issues. Now, what we taught after that definition was what has been mentioned before is called the ACT method: acknowledge, care, and tell. And this method is great because instead of telling you what to do, or instead of telling you how to do something, it tells you what to do. It really spells it out for you. So first off, We wanted to teach our students to be aware of others, to think not only about themselves, but to think about those around them so that they might be able to recognize and acknowledge an issue when they saw it. Next, we reminded them to care. We want our students to be genuine, to honestly take an interest in each other, and do their best to be compassionate towards all. We taught that it doesn't matter how close you are with someone. If they come to you with a problem, it's your responsibility to care because you care for that person as a person. Now, we made it very clear that it's not your responsibility to fix that problem. It's your responsibility and obligation to go get help and to seek assistance for that person. We made sure to stress that this isn't just a personal problem, that others need to get involved because they have more training than we do, and they can really help and make a difference. And we introduced our Big Macs to our school social worker and psychologist, as well as reminding them that they can always talk to a counselor, Mrs. Lane or Mrs. Stavish, and any of our administrators at McLean. Now, arguably the most important aspect of this training was stressing that our students should trust their gut. We really wanted to make sure that if they thought that something didn't seem right, they said something. And I can say that this already has made such a drastic impact at our school. Just a few weeks afterwards, our administrators had already heard of numerous stories numerous accounts of people who needed their help, and they got that help because of this ACT training. One of my personal friends, they just didn't seem right to me, and so I sent a quick email to an admin, and they were just incredibly receptive and made sure that my friend was doing all right. And I'm not sure that I necessarily changed anything, but I am positive that I did no harm in doing this. The only thing that I may have done was help. And similarly, there's no bad that can come from making sure that your friend is all right or making sure that you understand them a little bit better. If we spread the ACT method, we'll be more knowledgeable of the struggles our peers face. We can help guide our students to do the best they can to care for one another, and we will facilitate their asking for assistance in times that they need it. And this can only benefit not only our schools, but the community around us as a bigger group. And so we can make a difference right now. We can act, and we really must act. And to tell you a little bit about how McLean has been acting already, I'm going to turn it over to Lauren Jewell, and she's going to tell you some of the projects that we've already started.
As Jack mentioned, my name is Lauren Jewell, and I'm the president of the Active Minds Club at McLean High School. Active Minds has a mission to promote wellness and to reduce the stigma often attached to mental health. Our chapter has focused its efforts on increasing awareness of mental health, giving students coping mechanisms, and providing an environment where students feel comfortable to seek help when necessary. We devote our time, our effort, and our influence to not only grow our club, but also build awareness to prevent additional suicides and other incidents from occurring within our community. As of right now, there are only a few high schools affiliated with the Active Minds organization, primarily because they focus more closely with college campuses. We've had our own chapter for about 3 years now, and we've expanded tremendously throughout that time. When we first began, we had about 4 members, and within the past year, we've expanded to well over 150 and 80 followers on Twitter, so Ryan, we're catching up to you. Although we've only had this chapter for a short amount of time, we've managed to become the only 5-star high school rated chapter under the Active Minds organization. During the school year, we try our best to organize a wide variety of activities. These students take part in these activities not only to reduce the stigma, but also the stress and anxiety that students and faculty members experience from a day-to-day basis. Some of the activities that we put together are National Day Without Stigma, Laugh More, Stress Less Week, and Therapy Dogs. During Laugh More, Stress Less Week, we have several activities each day. In the next week or so, we'll hold our second Laugh More, Stress Less Week of this school year. The days consist of themed days, so Pajama Day is one of them, of course. And we also put up banners around the school where students can say what they do to stress less. You can make your own stress ball. We also give out a lot of food, which is very favorable. We give out popsicles, cookies, snow cones, and other baked goods just to brighten everyone's day a little bit. Also a huge attraction at our school is therapy dogs. We're hoping that we can get some other animals other than dogs for those who are allergic, as am I. We have trained therapy dogs come in during all lunches so the students can just play with them and reduce some of the stress that may have accumulated throughout the week. These events would not have been possible without the help of the PTA, the school administration, and other nonprofit organizations such as the Josh Anderson Foundation. They've been extremely instrumental in ensuring that this club is as successful as possible. In the future, we hope to connect more with the students and focus more heavily on stigma reduction and not only minimalizing stress. I personally hope that Fairfax County, or even our chapter specifically, can impact students of all ages on this delicate yet important subject. To add to what Ms. Werfel and Jack were saying, I took the mental health first aid training. I actually took it in this school. And what I learned, though, is that the average age for an individual dealing with an anxiety disorder is 11, which means that over half of the individuals experiencing high anxiety rates are not receiving the proper education that they should be, and their peers are not receiving the education to help them. This is primarily because many people focus more heavily on physical health. Clearly because it's visible. You can see when someone has a scraped elbow or a broken leg, but you can't see when someone is broken on the inside. With mental health first aid trainings and even the addition of informational time during school hours, mental health can be viewed similarly to physical health. My goal in addressing you guys today is that you will support the Active Minds efforts across Fairfax County, not only to high schools, but middle schools and elementary schools. McLean can be set as a role model for successful chapters that are making a difference in the lives of students and allowing them to laugh more and stress less.
That completes our presentation, so thank you for listening.
That concludes our formal part of the presentation, so could you please join me in giving all of these presenters another round of applause for being here this evening. And this fine group will gladly take any comments or questions anyone has.
We do have some questions, and I just want to thank you all for sharing your amazing stories, what you're doing. It's so uplifting to hear these stories and to hear the strides we're making in all the areas that you've described. So thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for sharing your stories. And we have some questions. I'm going to start off with Ms. McLaughlin.
As the resident social worker on the school board with a specialty in mental health, this has probably been one of my favorite evenings I can think of in the 3 years I've been on the board. I am making notes and trying to figure out how to quickly say everything that flashed through my mind. Ellen Galinsky, I had the pleasure of seeing her speak at George Mason University, and to hear how we're bringing that into our schools. That the research evidence showing that executive functioning skills are better predictors of success than the IQ. And here we are now in Fairfax, recognizing how do we help students be successful. That vulnerable children who do well in school often have well-developed executive functioning and emotional regulation. This is how we go about closing the achievement gap in our public schools. So restorative justice, West Potomac High School. I can't wait to come out and visit you. I'll let Dan know that's what I'm going to do, but you are singing my tune. The idea that we are reducing out-of-school suspensions, that we are helping to teach, which is discipline. The root word to discipline is disciple. It's to teach, not punish. We're helping to teach them to learn from their mistakes, to stay in school and not disrupt their education. Dr. Garza, it bears repeating, thank you for your leadership on this issue, the addition of these SOSAs in our schools. It's so heartwarming as both a parent and a school board member and a social worker to know that we are heading in this right direction. And finally, to McLean High School. Woodson, as you know, has gone through a tough time as well, and we have been fortunate to benefit some from the work that you're also doing, the mindfulness pilots in our classrooms. Principals like Dr. Riley, who really get that if we want our children to be academically successful, they have to have their social, emotional needs met. And these are lifelong skills. What we are doing for our kids will help them be successful for college, career, their families. I couldn't be more excited, as you can hear from my remarks. So I just really wanted to express my incredible passion, enthusiasm, excitement. I probably have to spend the next half of this year trying to visit with each of you because what you're doing, I can't wait to get into all 200 schools. Thank you for being here.
Ms. Schultz.
First of all, I think this has been one of the most fabulous presentations of talking to our goals since I've been on the board. So concrete, so detailed in terms of looking at it from a student aspect, looking at it from a classroom aspect, looking at it from a hesitant teacher aspect to a fully embraced teacher aspect. And it shows what, when we put our minds to it, how we can positively affect students in the classroom. I could not stop grinning ear to ear. I know Dr. Lip probably saw me through, and Dr. Dockery and I couldn't stop exchanging looks over the executive function work that you all are doing at Mountain View. This has been, a mission of mine as the liaison to ACSD, and we just had our report preview last night in my part-time job as school board member with you, Dr. Lip.
We had a good evening.
But one of the comments that was written, and I'm sorry, I forgot who said it, but that it must be explicitly taught and taught in context, and that we wind up with concrete and observable skills. That is something that all 187,000 students need. Not students just at alternative high schools, not just in pilot programs, not just special education students, not just ADHD students, students with working memory problems, students who've gotten into, scrapes and problems with our SR&R, but the real concrete observable skills are things that become lifelong tools. And whether you're a student representative, through an Active Minds program, boy, am I jealous for my kids at Robinson of the program that you guys have. How terrific, and you are great ambassadors for, I'm looking at Dr. Garza, how quickly can we get that in every single high school? In the takeaway on the restorative justice for me, I have to say, I don't know where he is.
Alex?
No, who's newly with us.
Jeremiah.
I've never been brought to tears through, the presentation of one of our core learning issues. But when you hear something that some of us fighting so hard, and somebody testified earlier tonight about, the loosening up of SR&Rs, and not to get that those kids aren't home playing on Xbox, and instead they're in a classroom and they're continuing to learn, and they don't have a pipeline to prison, and that they become manageable, productive students and then members of our society. That's what it's all about. And so, however we can continue this work and support you, and Dr. Lip, you and I work very closely together, as do Dr. Dockery, you and I. But for my colleagues who don't necessarily know, love, and embrace the power of executive functioning, the work that we're doing here has got to be incorporated into our curriculum from K through 12, because it makes the kind of difference that you're seeing in this presentation. And I'm almost overwhelmed.
If I could interrupt for just 1 second, Ms. Schultz, one of the things that happened today was those amazing originators at Mountain View were on a conference call with Ellen Galinsky in New York, who is writing her second book and will be including their work in this second book. And she also asked them how she could support what was it that this district needed, because they were understanding the importance of this. So we decided to wait longer before we gave her our ask list. But she, you know, to their credit, they gave an amazing explanations to her about the work. Also, I think it's important to know that beyond the work that they are doing, they've developed curriculum and lessons. They're taking them into other schools. We'll be training staff at Bryant this summer. So we have a lot of things that are going beyond the one school that could only happen because of their work. And also I think Dr. Lip has the other schools that have done mental health first aid. We have a number of schools, so we need to get those things out too, so that you'll know it's not an individual school.
Yeah. These fine people will be doing some of the training for us this summer that we've set up so that more schools can access these training opportunities.
And I want to thank both Dr. Jane, or Dr. Jane, Dr. Lip, and Dr. Dockery, you know, because I know that you've been extraordinarily patient with me as I have pushed for 3.5 years, you know, on this executive function thing, and you've been really tremendous at taking, you know, some of that championship and moving it to action in the classroom through these pilots. And I really hope that, you know, we see a rollout of even more of the Active Minds type programs and the restorative justice and the executive function
and we're
for all our students.
hoping to expand Bridge to K to 18 more schools this summer. So, yep.
Thank you. Ms. Evans.
Thank you. I'm going to echo what my colleagues said about being blown away by this report. I think that what you've shown us here is both truly the importance of what we talk about being the whole child, but putting it into really concrete terms. You know, and to look at, I took many, many notes on this report, and just to see all that we are doing towards this goal is phenomenal. Good. And you all are to be congratulated on all the tremendous work you are doing in the area of student health and well-being, which is of critical importance to our students. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of things as some of my colleagues have, and with a couple of questions. When I hear that restorative justice is transformative, that is exactly what we needed to hear, and to have it put into such concrete terms that we had 18 students who started doing this for themselves and then never returned. That's what this is about, and why the discipline reform that we worked on, putting the SOSAs into the school, that was just wonderful to hear on a very specific level.
Let me share too, Ms. Evans, that we didn't have parents speaking this evening, but we have gotten so much positive feedback from parents about restorative justice practices, because what they say is, you've given my child a consequence, but you've also worked with my child to develop those positive strategies and skills, and you've really helped them further develop social emotionally. And so that has been really positive feedback from our school staffs.
That has been terrific.
Parents.
And then when you look at the numbers, the out-of-school suspensions being down by 22%, I believe it is, which is terrific. You know, as the gentleman said, you know, we want the students in school.
Absolutely.
And that's what this does. So that was tremendous.
You'll also see the power of it with the staffs, because again, teachers want students in their classrooms. They want them in class.
Absolutely.
So that they're available for learning and they're there. And so we've gotten very positive feedback from a lot of our staffs regarding these practices also.
Right. And what McLean High School is doing, I agree. I would love to see this at all of our schools. You know, the more we can expand a truly comprehensive effort to get to student health and particularly the mental health piece of it. You know, that's tremendous. And I noticed in the report itself, it talked about resiliency and promoting kindness. There was a time when that word would not have been in a report to the school board, just that we care about kindness among our kids. It's not necessarily something you can measure, but it's something that's so important.
Let me tell you too that these students have been wonderful about sharing their ideas with the other schools, the SJA reps, the leadership classes, the other student leaders, and so as they all share ideas and it further pollinates, you know, it's really produced some very creative, wonderful initiatives. You saw their 3-year journey and how it's evolved, and we see other schools really sharing ideas, really establishing times to get together and talk about the mental health initiatives, what else they can do to support student wellness and well-being.
And the SAC, I know they have had at least, I think maybe 2 sessions on this, and that's another opportunity for students to share. I know when I sat down at lunch with the student leaders from the schools in Mason District, health, mental health was and stress was at the top of their list, and they right there at lunch were sharing that. And I think that may be one of the best ways for it to expand is student by student. So that's excellent work, and congratulations to the students who are making such a difference at their school. And thank you for joining us tonight. As far as Active Minds being a role model, I think that's great. On the couple of questions, I see that bullying is down. That's another area, because
Both bullying and cyberbullying.
And cyberbullying is down. We hear, we're hearing more about it. So I guess we get the impression that it's up, but so it's good to see at least statistically it's down. We still need to work on that.
Yes, we do.
We absolutely need to work on that. Of course, I appreciated getting the report on sleep.
You saw the sleep, the 8 to 10 hours.
And I appreciated it being on school nights, and of course you can see there how important it is that we're going to get the later start times to help that effort, because so few of our kids are getting enough sleep, and so I appreciate that being in there as well. Tobacco is way down. That's great. We still got to work on the marijuana. That's in this report too. So I could go on and on with questions and comments, but basically this is it's a very excellent job. You're doing just such wonderful work. And I did have one question, which was, I see at the end of the report that the youth risk survey is being reevaluated and some of the questions being removed. Can you tell us a little bit about the process and how questions are going to be chosen? Just because, I know there are some that are pretty nitty-gritty, but...
Dee Dee's with us tonight, and she can share with us. She's been looking over the specific questions and what will be included in that.
I mean,
Dee Dee, do you want to...
Just a broad brush on here, because, that the youth risk survey has given us wonderful data.
I think I can just quickly, yes, because... The core of it, especially the ones that are reoccurring that we use from nationally normed questions, and that the county relies on, those will remain the same. We added some for goals 2 and 3 that are not producing any results. They're not nationally normed, they're not producing relevant information, they make the survey longer. So that's the place where Dr. Baylor works with Sophia at the county side.
I see.
But it's more, we are going to have to add some questions on sexual harassment. So there's certain things, but not related to the core nationally norm that we've always had.
Okay, great. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. So sleep will stay in there.
Sleep will stay in there,
Good.
yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and we'll do the results of the survey again. We're doing them this spring in the 19 high schools. We'll do it again next spring, and children's will have that report for us then.
Thank you for all that you are doing, and for everyone who came here tonight. Just terrific work in all of these areas. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Ms. Strauss.
Thank you. This was just incredibly inspiring. As you hear, I don't think any of us can be as pumped up as we are with this. Certainly, we adopted the goal 2 and 3 a very long time ago. Because as a school system, we understood how important the aspects of mind in the making and metacognition and the mental health and restorative justice, how important all of that was. And obviously, this, I think, shows the vision when we talk about a portrait of a graduate. It is these wonderful things that you all are doing that makes it all fit together, because we know we live in a world, it's not just what you know, what you can do with what you know, and that requires the reflection, it requires the all of the pieces that everybody has talked about, Mountain View and McLean High School. It is just very, very, very exciting. And once again, you all as educators show the way of how to really embrace our children. The other piece that I just wanted to highlight is what we are seeing our administrators who empower their schools and empower their children. And Dr. Riley, you said it so well. And when you talked about how when your educators and your students come with good ideas, you open the door and guide them and give them an opportunity to fully develop it. And that's the kind of collaboration, it's the kind of leadership. In Mountain View, incredible, huge staff of people, and that Ellen Galinsky is obviously going to use. These are the kind of people we need in Fairfax County. We need to keep in Fairfax County as we, talk about our budgets and everything else. This is what makes our children so successful. So thank you. We are very proud. I'm very proud of McLean High School. You guys do great, great work. And Dr. Garza, you clearly, you understand how to empower these people and to show us the way. So this is what the portrait of the graduate's got to look like. Thank you all very, very much.
You're welcome. Ms. Hines.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. I remember hearing a couple of years ago that many school systems don't have these kinds of goals, actually. They just have the academic goal. But we have these other two that, that don't speak directly to student achievement, but of course, they underlie all of our student achievement and student well-being. And I really, we do have more data type information, which I appreciate. We always have plenty of data in the school system. But I think the presentation here tonight was so great because we got to see how this is happening in real life, and we heard from our practitioners, our administrators, and our most important practitioners, our students, came to meet with us tonight too, which I think is amazing. You guys did such a wonderful job.
They were excited about coming too.
Good, I could
They
tell.
were really excited about coming and showcasing their work.
I could tell that you enjoyed sharing what you're doing and informing us. That was wonderful. This is, I agree that this is sort of all of this is a foundation for the portrait of a graduate because so much of the portrait of a graduate goes to relationships and self-awareness, and so we need all of this going on all the time. We are innovating from the classroom. We can see that, and I think that's the best way to do it, but doing it based in research. And I think embedding change in practice always takes courage, and hearing from the teachers at Mountain View in particular, it does take a lot of courage, I think, to agree to make changes. But being willing to do that then builds a model, and that's what we've all been talking about here is, we are building models at the classroom level. I like that we heard from the whole range. We heard about pre-K all the way through, those who are about to graduate from high school. At Holland Meadows is a great example. For many years now, they've been doing wonderful work there. And one of these days, I'm going to sit down and really figure out what the model is there, and how we can spread it, to other places. And Hunters Woods, of course, is in Hunter Mill District, my district, and it's a wonderful school. The Arts and Science Magnet there makes so many great things happen. And that reaching out to pre-K and to the families is a huge part of it. I also, again, I was taking a lot of notes too, and I'm sorry, I'll try to be quick. But several years ago, the folks some volunteers in Vienna put together the Support on Suspension program for kids who were out of school on suspension. And it was a good program, but I think we always knew that it was kind of a stopgap, that it was not as good as something that the school system could do within the schools. And I think moving from SOS to SOSA is just a leap forward in what we're able to do. So I thank you all so much for what you're doing in that, and anything we can do. Obviously, at the board level, we need to know, where the resources are needed, so that we're sure to put them where they need to be. Well, I guess that's it. Things have already been said, but again, I wanted to thank the students and thank you for the goodie bag. Mr. McIlvain here has already worn out his bubble wrap, I can tell you that.
It was a hit.
Mr. Lateef.
Thank you. Firstly, I want to say hello to my good friend Jack Holland, who really should have told me he was coming to a school board meeting. I would have done something, so welcome. They are great ambassadors for what's going on at McLean High School. I really do want to see this move countywide. Something that we obviously need to do countywide, also the mental health first aid training, bless you. The mental health first aid training is definitely something that's critical, and we should make that available to more students. And lastly, I do want to say that you're going to hear a lot more about this, Active Minds, peer-to-peer support groups, all these different strategies at this year's Teen Stress Summit, May 9th at Hayfield. As Ms. Evans said, we did a lot of work actually at our last meeting of the SAC at Hayfield, we discussed the different stressors in people's lives and teenagers' lives and what the county can do to alleviate it. And something that I look forward to is having the different schools use the SAC as a forum to share best practices. Obviously, these are best practices at McLean. This is something that students can bring back to their own schools and do along with their administrators. This is something both teachers and students can collaborate on and really work to bring it countywide, because I think it would make a world of difference at schools all across Fairfax. Thank you.
Dr. Garza.
So I get the final word, I guess. I was going, and I'll try not to repeat things that have already been said, but at this time, when oftentimes the thinking is around a deficit model, don't you find that to be the case? And that's nationally, we're constantly having to fight for the resources we need to support our public schools. This is really an opportunity to really think from an abundance perspective, right? And I do want to compliment this board, because most school systems, particularly in tight budget times, they only focus on goal 1. And they typically have goals around academic achievement goals. But this school system, in the direction of the board and many other leaders throughout the system, recognized that that was clearly insufficient and not enough. And I do think it's reflective of the portrait of a graduate, and we know those skills that are the tools and skills necessary not only to be successful in school, but interaction and success and relationships in their community and throughout their lives. So I think I'm just so proud of our schools and the work that's being done, because it's more than just the IQ piece, it's the EQ piece, the emotional intelligence, which is what we're talking about. Restorative justice, executive functioning, those are some areas that this school system has been talking about for some time. We are taking, because anything that's working in some schools, if it's good for one child, it's good for all children. You've heard me on that. And so you'll see in the strategic plan, this board, in the draft strategic plan, it talks about taking these kinds of successful practices to scale. The student health and wellness, and I'm so excited on Monday, we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about SR&R. And I will tell you, at a time when we were cutting 731 positions last year, this board approved the expenditure of $1.8 million to put SOSAs into our high schools, and looking at behavior from an intervention perspective, not a punitive perspective. And I will tell you, it's a model that we can all be very proud of. I'm so excited, Jill, for you all to be able to talk about it on Monday in much more depth. But I'm just so proud of the work that you've done on that in that area, and I think it's something that other schools should emulate and follow. So I'm excited about that. More on Monday about that. And then finally, we struggled when Dr. Lip and Dr. Dockery brought this to us at LT, because there were so many schools we could have highlighted. There were, countless, 198 schools we could have picked that are really taking Goal 2 and Goal 3 seriously and doing some really creative things. But you did a good job in picking these schools, didn't you, tonight? So thank you all so much for being here tonight. We appreciate it. A lot going on, but we're very, very proud of this great work, and thank you for being here tonight. Again, I do think the data, there's lots and lots of data, but really these stories tell the most important part of how this is making a difference in the lives of students. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Garza. Before you leave, Dr. Lip, we have another board member that wanted to comment. Mr. Stork?
Thank you. I'm sorry, Dr. Garza, I guess I didn't get my hand up clearly enough, but first off, I want to recognize, and I really have to recognize the work that Holland Meadows has done at lots of levels, and I know partly because they've struggled as the school system has struggled, so I'm kind of tagging on to comments that you were making about how we've made tough choices, and that particular school community has made a number of tough choices, but they've also, if you will, put their energy and efforts and ultimately their money where their mouth is, which is they deeply believe in really having an all-school community, and they do that in lots of ways. Obviously, the gardens there are things that we specifically see. If you ever visit the school, the surroundings, both inside and outside, really reflect a learning community. But I've also had the privilege of going to one of their community meetings, their in-school community meetings, and the energy is what you might expect with about half the school at one time, and the kids and the efforts that were made by really the assistant principals to kind of engage kids and talk about different issues within the community. So I really needed to at least address that and identify that how much I have personally seen and felt that effort, and I think how much it's made, a difference it's made in that school community. So I wanted to especially acknowledge that and to thank them, because we're talking about folks in a community that doesn't have a lot. I mean, we have, it's typical of the Mount Vernon district and Richmond Highway area, where you have a core group of parents who have more, and then you have a larger group of parents who maybe don't have as much and are challenged to try to support the school because of their own schedules, et cetera. And the school, finds a way to bring those parts of the community together, has consistently raised more than $100,000 to try to support those efforts, and they've made it work. And I really, it pains me to say that we cannot support them better, but I recognize that has been our challenge, and that's obviously why we all feel that our school system has to have additional money to really do the kind of quality programming, the kind of quality support that our kids not only need, but they deserve if they're truly going to be competitive in the world that they're going to be facing. So I at least needed to acknowledge that. Thank you.
And one more, Ms. Reed.
There you go. We reach a certain number, then we all feel like we have to say something. I don't want to repeat what everybody has already said, but a few things that I wanted to mention. Thank you all for your work and for your braveness, because you're making big changes. And what you're doing for us, I think, is taking some of the words that we talk about, like resilience, and you're bringing it to life. You're helping us see what's really happening to our students in our schools, in the classrooms, and the impacts that you can have. And so it's really helpful for us to listen to this. Sometimes, we get piles of reports, and yes, a lot of us love to look at the data, but we can't forget that it's all about our kids, right? And you all are making such a difference. And here you are, it's almost 9 o'clock at night. Bless your hearts for being here and for providing this kind of insight to us, because it's so important that we hear this. And you're doing the right thing, and I think we all agree we need to be doing it in all of our schools. You're making such positive changes, and we just can't thank you enough. So hopefully you'll be able to get out of here and get some rest before you have to go back and do it again tomorrow morning. But I just wanted to say thank you very much for everything you're doing, and you're breathing life into the portrait of a graduate that's no longer just words, it's now actions.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 3.03, student representative matters. I call on Mr. Lateef.
Thank you. Chairman Dernak Kofax, Dr. Garza, members of the school board. I hope everyone had a great spring break and had a chance to relax and prepare for the final push to the end of the school year. Although we've just been back for the last 4 days, they have been busy ones. On Tuesday morning, I headed down to South County High School, where I had a great discussion with the student leadership class. We covered topics ranging from the reasons students register for 3, 4, 5, or more AP classes, to students' opinions concerning FCPS's grading policy, as well as any potential changes that might be coming down the road. I thank South County for hosting me, and it was great seeing Mr. Ragone, the principal of South County, who was my principal at Langley for the first 3.5 years of high school. So it was nice to see him again. This morning, I visited Westfield High School's leadership classes. I thank seniors Paige Esposito and Shannon Grievous for hosting me. I had a chance to speak with their leadership class on a variety of issues, and I met and sat down with Principal Tim Thomas, who gave me great insights into how the underfunding of the FCPS budget affects the day-to-day operation of individual schools. He also had great things to say about the Systems of Support program, and he said it was a great addition to the Westfield community, so he hopes that continues. I'll be at Annandale High School next Wednesday, and before the end of my term, I plan on visiting Lee, West Potomac, Herndon, McLean, Madison, and Lake Braddock. At that point, I would have visited all high and secondary schools in the district and put an ungodly amount of miles on my car. This past Tuesday afternoon, I very much enjoyed speaking at the Board of Supervisors' public hearing on the FY 2016 Fairfax County budget, a budget that underfunds us by $14 million. I thank Mr. Greenberg for giving me the time to make my views and the views of many of my peers heard. And as I said on Tuesday, the Board of Supervisors has forced FCPS to make nearly $500 million in cuts and eliminate nearly 2,100 positions, all during a time that we've grown by almost 24,000 students around the size of Arlington County. As the nation's 10th largest school system, this is an unsustainable and frankly irresponsible trend to be on, and as I said before, I urge the Board of Supervisors to fully fund Fairfax County Public Schools. As our student population and therefore our costs increase over the next several years, we must either increase funding of our school system or face an uncertain future. It was great to see members of the FCPS community make their voices heard and advocate for the future of FCPS to ensure that we remain excellent, competitive, and able to provide all our county's children with a great shot at a bright future. Looking ahead, on the invitation of Principal Ann Smith, I will be touring the Key Center School in Springfield next Thursday, the 16th. I'm looking forward to that. I'll be at the final Student Advisory Council meeting of the year on Thursday, April 23rd at Falls Church High School. How time flies. Really sad. It was a really good group of students we had this year, and I believe we've done great work. It's been my privilege to work with each and every one of them, and I'm now able to say that I have a friend at every high school in the county, which is pretty fun. Today marks exactly 1 month until the second annual Community Conversation on Teen Stress, which will be held May 9th at Hayfield Secondary. I've been very happy to be working with Dr. Dockery, Dr. Lip, and Dr. Baylor, along with Ben Press and others, on working to plan this year's summit. After reading some of the proposals for presentations that were submitted, I can confidently say that it will be an important and thought-provoking morning for anyone with a vested interest in the health and well-being of students in Fairfax County. A lot more information on the summit can be found by going to fcps.edu and searching Teen Stress Summit. And finally, although I'll be leaving the country for college this September, I dropped by the Fairfax County Office of Elections while I was at the Government Center on Tuesday and registered to vote absentee. So for Mr. McElveen, Mr. Moon, Mr. Velkoff, and Ms. Strauss, I am still a voting constituent regardless of whether I'm home or abroad. Still be there. And finally, I just got a text that my grandparents flew in and are watching this at home right now. So hi guys, I'll be there as soon as I can. It's really up to you all. Thank you.
Hi, Harris's grandparents. Next, we move on to action items, and 4.01, community members to serve on the Audit Committee, and I call on Mr. Moon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the school board increase the membership of the board's Audit Committee by adding 2 community members. Further move that A, the 2 community members will be selected by the school board in accordance with an approved selection process, and B, the 2 community members will not be permitted to participate in any closed meetings of the school board.
Second. Seconded by Mr. Stork. Mr. Moon, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly, and then I am going to be deferring to Mr. Stroll, who was the chair of a prior audit committee where the regional recommendation came from. During the September 8, 2014 work session, there was an initial discussion of the audit committee's recommendation to add 2 community members to serve on the audit committee. There was a consensus among the board members to schedule a continuation of the discussion at a future work session and to clarify the qualifications and selection process to be used for those community members. At the November 10, 2014 work session, there was board consensus to support the recommendation from the audit committee to add 2 community members to serve on the audit committee and update the strategic manual accordingly. There was also consensus that the audit committee chairman, there was also consensus that school board chairman would determine the schedule for board action, and we are taking action tonight, and the audit committee chairman with advice from school board's legal counsel would develop language about the scope of the community members' participation. We had some legal briefings from our legal counsel. Meanwhile, I was sort of hoping to be able to take our board action on this particular recommendation a little sooner than we are taking it right now. But here we are. We are finally, board is taking action. I'm glad to see that. Mr. Stork?
Thank you, Mr. Moon. The genesis of this process, really what we're here to vote on tonight, started more than a year ago when we, as audit committee members, we were really looking comprehensively at our system and how best to maybe reformulate it to, I think, further enhance the quality of our audits. What does that mean? We recognize that up till then, we'd pretty much been focused on an internal audit process and not maybe on as much on kind of a system and efficiency and effectiveness type of audit. And we recognize as board members we had some skills, particularly on the internal audit side, because we know the operations well. But we also recognize as we broadened our knowledge, our involvement with the audit process, that we would need outside expertise. And that outside expertise could come in a variety of ways, but in particular, we're looking for some more business, business knowledgeable individuals, as well as individuals who might have more experience on broader systems and organizational effectiveness kinds of skills. So acknowledging that, we looked to other models, and we obviously observed what the county has done, and we saw that particularly the community members that they had on there. I actually spoke with one individual and understand better how he saw his role and actually what he felt could be positive in terms of what the school system could benefit from. And we had great discussion over a number of months about that. And ultimately, the audit committee recommended in the summer of 2014 to proceed with reformulating the board, and we made a recommendation to this organization, which really over the last essentially 9 months we've been adding and really finalizing through this process. So the net effect is that this is, I think, the last major element of those recommendations from last summer, and we believe it will strengthen our board and our processes to have public members to come and provide us with their individual expertise. Yes, our board does have a lot of different experiences. I know as a business person and as my financial background has helped me to be effective in certain ways, and other board members contribute other skills, whether it's legal skills or educational skills, knowledge of the educational system or social work skills, et cetera. Those are all add to the potential strength of the audit committee. But again, we recognize that we needed more, and this provides us with that opportunity. And I'm excited to be seconding this motion and even more excited to be moving forward with implementing this process for the school board and, in essence, really completing the comprehensive audit process, the audit general process that we started so long ago. We have one final piece of that, which we all recognize is the hiring of an auditor general, and that's still part of what we're engaged with and would expect to hopefully complete that relatively shortly. But we know that this is the last major board action on this issue and look forward to supporting it. Thank you.
Ms. Hines.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very excited to be supporting this. You know, oversight of an enormous organization like Fairfax County Public Schools, 10th largest school system in the country, $2.5 billion budget, 190 schools, 25,000 employees. It's a huge task, and I think having a robust and independent school board audit function is essential. And you know, 3 years ago when some of us first started on the board, there was a lot of conversation in the community about whether our audit function was robust and independent enough. So in the last 3 years, I just take a moment to kind of, you know, talk about what we've accomplished in the last 3 years. We have removed the voting status of staff members on the audit committee, which I think adds to the independence of the audit committee. We are in the process of hiring our third, you know, a professional auditor leader there, and that will triple the number of auditors that we have serving us. We have added program audits to the traditional financial audits, and those program audits will look at our programs. For example, we have a report on our math curriculum program. I mean, that's pretty fundamental, and those ask questions about whether what we're doing is effective and whether it's serving our goals, our policy goals. So that's a huge addition to what we're doing, and now we're talking about adding citizen members, and I think, again, that's going to give us a shot of independence and just make what we do that much more effective. So I just wanted to thank the school board members who have served on the audit committee over the last 3 years. I've had a couple of brief stints, but a lot of people have served on it in the last 3 years, and I know this has been a lot of work and a lot of change, and so I would thank staff also for sticking with us and doing the hard work of all that change.
Thank you. Ms. McLaughlin.
I just want to emphasize how much I agree with the remarks that Ms. Hines just shared, as well as Mr. Moon and Mr. Stork. I was very pleased to have worked with Mr. Stork on the audit committee when we were very much trying to enhance the audit function in the school board office. And reaching this point tonight, it was a long journey. It took some time to convince a majority of this board that we needed to reach the point of having an auditor general, that we needed to bring in outside citizens that could bring their expertise. And I'm pleased that tonight you will see now a majority of the board having recognized the value for this. We are blessed to live in one of the most highly educated counties in the country, and we don't have the paid staff in our school board office. And I think tonight's motion to bring on these two citizens to our audit committee is our very best efforts to still have that type of advice and expertise to help this board do, as Ms. Hines pointed out, an incredibly important and fiscally demanding job in managing this budget. And I really do want to also extend my sincere compliments to Dr. Garza. She has been fantastic in my interactions with her on the audit committee, very much a partner and bringing her leadership experience from Texas to support this board's efforts in having strong audit function. And I think that is a true testament to her leadership of wanting to see this school system be successful. So very excited about tonight's vote.
Ms. Strauss?
Thank you. Yes, as everyone has said, it's taken us a while to expand the committee and to expand our staff and to expand our ability to do more in-depth analysis and audits of our school system. So I'm very excited that we've gotten to this point. And just to add, not only do we have more school board members on the audit committee, we will now have 2 citizens. We have more auditors in our office. In the midst of all of this, we also did begin and finish the very large state efficiency audit, which was major work, plus the large risk assessment as well. So we've done a lot of heavy lifting in the last 2 to 3 years, and we're not done yet, but I think that we have definitely will have ourselves in a much better, a much stronger position that I think we all wanted to see. So I'm pleased that we've come to this point tonight. Thank you.
Any other comments before the vote? Ms. Schultz.
So I'm thrilled being a pre-school board member advocate for improvements in the independent audit function to this board that we've arrived here. I am sorry that it took us this long. I don't think that bodes or speaks well of, this wasn't our best work to get here. I mean, we finally did get here, but I sort of feel like the triathlete, you know, who's seen crawling, you know, exhausted and spent to a finish line. And the finish line isn't tonight, unfortunately. The finish line is actually hiring an independent auditor. And so, you know, this is the amuse-bouche for us. You know, I want us to get to, you know, the main serving, which is actually completing the hiring. That's when this board can really be in a position to congratulate itself. This is definitely a step forward, and it is progress. But on our next big thing, let's not take this long. And on this one thing, let's get this completed in its totality for the good of the public.
Ms. Reed.
Well, I pretty much was about to say everything that Ms. Schultz just said. I guess I keep thinking of the song, The Long and Winding Road, you know, and we're getting there. And sometimes I think when we have an action item like this, the context isn't provided. But you know, some of us have been talking about the audit function and having more independence for years and years and years. So it is a bit of a victory, I think, that we all have finally gotten to this point. But really, it's the Auditor General position that will be the frosting on the cake, I think, for us to really feel that we have the independence that that the school board needs to manage the $2.6 billion budget. So I guess I'm willing to say it's been a long, strange trip. I could quote all kinds of songs, but I won't. But and we are on our way, but we're not quite there yet. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for your comments. I will concur, a long and winding road. And with that, the motion is behind us, and I would like to say all those in favor of the motion about community members serving on the audit committee. All those in favor? That vote is unanimous. Thank you so much. Moving on to agenda item number 4.02, school board member salaries, and I again call on Mr. Moon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is again another motion which has been taking a long and winding road, and hopefully I'm seeking unanimous support. With that, Madam Chair, I move that effective January 1, 2016, the annual salary for each member of the Fairfax County School Board be set at $37,500, and that the school board chairman be paid an additional annual salary of $2,000. If I get a second, I will speak to the motion.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Schultz. Mr. Moon, you may speak to your motion.
I would like to ask for indulgence of my board members a bit. I brought this one up for discussion at a forum back in December. So this has taken at least about 4 months. A salary increase for those in public service is always unpopular, and each discussion is difficult to be brought up. After all, public service is not for personal gains or profits, but is instead expected to accompany personal sacrifices. As we know, according to Code of Virginia, any change in the salary of school board members in Fairfax County can happen no more than once in every 4 years. And during the first 6 months of the election year, that decision has to be made. In fact, for the Fairfax County School Board, the salary change has occurred once in every 8 years. And if we do not make any change this time, the next opportunity will not come until the year 2019, to start from 2010, which will be then 12 years from the last time there was a change. I felt that we should not wait until 2019 to have this discussion. Hence, I brought a proposal to start that discussion back in December of last year. I agree that the proposed change is large in terms of its percentage increase. And we have heard from many individuals tonight, earlier today at public hearing, why such increase should not be approved. And I want to thank them for coming out and sharing their views. And I also want to thank those who were speaking in favor of, in support of the proposed change too. Let me first tell you what this proposed change is not. The proposed change is not for the current board. The law does not allow any sitting board to increase its own salary. Any change, if approved, will not be implemented until the next year. That is for the new board after the election in November. The proposal is, from my perspective, is not about a fair compensation for the board members for their work either. if the fair compensation is what you are looking for, what you are talking about, the amount may be should be substantially larger than what's on the table. The proposal is rather to provide a reasonable, modest support for the board members to be able to do their job, to be able to put in the number of hours that are required of them every day, every week, and throughout the entire year. In overseeing the operation of the 10th largest school district in the country, with a $2.6 billion of annual operating budget and $155 million of capital budget, and more than 24,000 employees. And the responsibility of serving in the position of a school board member should be open to all people. I say all people who have a necessary skill sets and dedication to serve. And the school board position should not be just for those people who are independently wealthy or have spouses who can financially support them. I have served about 16 years on the board, and can therefore confidently say how the character of the board member's job has changed over the years, and how much time the board members should devote to do their job. One of the speakers at the public hearing earlier today stated that he did not have computers, cell phones, or even voicemails when he began his board service 20 years ago. He was absolutely right that there was no computer, no cell phone, or no voicemail. I served with him. Now with all those cell phones and voicemails and computers, the parents and then community members can get in touch with us at their fingertips and demand instant responses and multiple responses. The workload has increased tremendously over the years. Board members are responsible for setting general school policies, approving the annual budget, and hiring the superintendent. Board members spend many hours attending board, school PTA, and community meetings, visiting schools and classrooms, reviewing meeting materials and reports in preparation for board meetings, attending required professional development programs, and communicating with the students, parents, staff, and community members, and evaluating performance of the superintendent and her team members. And the public seems to be demanding more and more from the board members each day. 8 years ago, when this issue was last brought up, I was one of the only 2 board members to vote no on the salary increase. I said at the time, as I recall, that I knew exactly what the school board member salary was going to be before I ran for the school board. And I did not run for the school board for money. I said that the salary was not the motivating factor for me to run for and serve on the board. What I had said 8 years ago still holds true for me today. And those who run for the school board do not run for money. If they wanted money, they should do something else. And they would have done something else. What I'm looking from tonight's proposal is to find a way to provide just enough support to the board members so that even if they are not independently wealthy or someone else financially supporting them, they can do their job. The Virginia Code allows school board member salary to be as much as county supervisors. The salary for the supervisors will become $95,000 from next year. Operating budget of Fairfax County Public Schools is larger than counties, and the number of employees in the school system is more than twice the counties. My proposal does not seek the same $95,000. The school board members need to put, in my mind, you all know, at least minimum 20 to 30 hours a week to do your job. We know there are board members. We know many of you put in many more hours than 20 to 30 hours a week. The proposed increase in the salary will allow board members to independently support themselves with perhaps holding another part-time job. I want to conclude my remarks by providing you with a few data points on how the makeup of this board, school board, has changed over the last 20 years. The first elected board 20 years ago, in 1996, had 8 men and 4 women. We now have that exactly opposite, with 4 men and 8 women. I'm not making any judgment on that. In 1996, there were 9 board members with day jobs, but we only have 5 board members with day jobs today. In 1996, there were 3 minorities serving on the board. We now have only 1. 20 years ago, we had 29 candidates running for the school board, and out of those 29, 17 were men. In the last election 4 years ago, the number of the candidates has decreased to 22, and only 6 of them were men. You can draw your own conclusions from these data points. But serving on the board has increasingly become more difficult for certain groups of people. I believe that we can and we should help broaden the universe of people who can consider serving on the board. The opportunities to serve on the board should not be left to a small part of the community. I would love to see a little more diverse group of people to serve on the board, more diverse in terms of their personal and professional backgrounds and experiences, and a more balanced makeup demographically. Having said all this, I realize that there are various different viewpoints on the proposal on the table. And we all know any proposal to pass requires a majority vote. Therefore, Madam Chair, I intend to make an amendment to lower the amount after Mrs. Schultz if she chooses to speak on her second.
All right, thank you. Ms. Schultz.
I'll defer to speak.
Mr. Moon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to amend the main motion by striking the annual salary figure of $37,500 and inserting $32,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Evans. Mr. Moon, would you?
I think I've talked enough.
Thank you. Ms. Evans.
Yes, thank you very much. And first of all, I want to thank Mr. Moon for bringing this forward and having many, many conversations for us to consider this. And I also wanted to say I wanted to thank everybody on this board for the thought that went into coming up with a reasonable salary increase for the next school board, and I think we need to make it clear it is for the next school board. There have been a lot of thoughts on the amount here. Some have said go higher, some have said go lower, so some have said don't do anything at all. But I do want to reiterate that this is not a 1-year salary increase. This is really a 12-year salary increase. School boards can only raise their the salary for the next board every 4 years. The last increase went into effect in 2008. The next possible time that another one could go into effect is 2020. So I do want all of us, including the members of the public, to understand that this is a long-term increase. And I do think that it's important for this board to raise the salaries from where it is today. Both when I was a volunteer advocate working with the school board and in my years on the board, I have been tremendously impressed with the work and dedication of board members, and particularly this board, everybody on this board. It's still considered a part-time job, but it really isn't. Some of us have this as our only full-time job, and others of us somehow manage to work what is in essence a full-time job around other, as Mr. Moon said, day jobs, and manage to dedicate their time either late at night, early in the morning, on weekends to get this job done. And that's the reality. Even with this increase, our salary next year, the next board's salary, will not be anywhere near the salaries of our colleagues on the Board of Supervisors. Still, it is clear that this role is one of community service. No one does this job, no one goes into this job or asks for this job for the money, nor should they. A significant requirement for this job, to my mind, is a passionate desire to serve students, to serve families, and to make this school system the very best that it can be. I want to assure the teachers who came out and teachers who have written and those who haven't written that this board, that pay increases for teachers and our other dedicated employees remain our top priority. We have made that clear, and we are working with staff, we are working together to do our best to get our salaries of our employees up as quickly as possible. I think in some ways the motion on the table will please no one, but it does seem to me that we have found a reasonable balance, and this is one I am willing to support.
Colleagues, I see no hands. Thank you. Ms. McLaughlin.
Okay, the first thing I would like to share, I believe my colleagues are aware of this, but I think the public is not. As public officials, the media will come and sit in our meetings, and they will take our remarks, and regrettably sometimes they will take them out of context. And tonight during the public hearing, I greatly appreciated everyone who came and spoke to us, but there was reference to a Washington Post article where my remarks about the public not understanding the depth and breadth of the work that the school board does, and that we attend many meetings, was essentially how the public understood my point of view. And for the record, I wanted to correct that. I think Mr. Moon captured it very well, without question. 30 to 40 hours a week. This is including things like responding to constituent emails, phone calls, inquiries, issues they're facing in their schools. It is meeting with staff, community members, administrators. It is the monthly meetings and work sessions. I'm very deeply appreciative of every single one of my colleagues up here tonight and their passion and dedication for the work we do. But what remarks should have been put in the Washington Post, quite honestly, is what I've been saying consistently with my colleagues all along. Trying to give yourselves a pay raise in the climate we've been in of a recession that has been so difficult and has impacted so many of our employees. Trying to make up for a salary compensation for our school board members that haven't seen one in over 7 years and may not see one then, as Ms. Evans pointed out, for 12 years. I understand the merits of that concern, but trying to remedy that in a single motion without the public really understanding that amount of money, which we've been hearing quoted. First you wanted to double your salary at 100%, then it was 87%, and now the motion on the table would still be at $32,000, that's about a 60% increase. Over 12 years, that's about a 5% per year. My suggestion to my colleagues in the multiple months that we discussed this was to follow the direction of other jurisdictions, Montgomery County, Los Angeles School Board, where they tasked an independent review board to objectively look at the duties and responsibilities of these jobs and to come back with an independent recommendation on what, if any, salary increase there should be. And I still stand firm when I shared that with my colleagues, that that was the best way to approach this thing. Yes, you've heard tonight that the Board of Supervisors voted themselves a $20,000 raise. So they will now, next year, receive a $95,000 compensation. But that's still only a 26% increase to their current, 26% increase to what they've been paid. So that seems to have been palatable with the public. Only 3 people showed up to their public hearing to discuss their compensation. But what I have heard from tonight in the public hearings, what I have heard from my constituents in Bragg District who've written to me about this, overwhelmingly, they don't understand it, it's upsetting to them, and they do not feel it's appropriate. And in terms of my own service to this board, I knew when I ran for this office 4 years ago, it was a $20,000 compensation. I knew that it would be virtually a full-time job. I have found it to be an honor, and I have enjoyed every day of my work on this board. It's not about the compensation. It really is about whether or not you want to serve. And we have members on this board who work full-time, and they have served multiple terms on this board. So while the compensation might be of concern, it doesn't seem to have prevented my colleagues from wanting to continue doing this work. So I've really been troubled by the argument that we needed to raise it in order to attract more qualified people or more diverse people to the position. I think that former school board member tonight, Sue Gibson, said it best. Anyone who's tried to run for a public office here in Fairfax County knows it is extremely costly and time intensive and very difficult. And I think that that alone has been a hurdle that's prevented some of the diversity that we don't have reflected on the school board. In closing, what I'd like to say to my colleagues is that I really still believe that had we given this to key stakeholders in our community to analyze this and examine this and objectively given us a recommendation, we would have been better positioned to then engage our public with that independent recommendation, whatever that would have been. But I don't feel that we were successful with this. And I was elected to represent my community, and my community has not felt this was in the best interest. And to our teachers especially, who I feel like we've been hearing from a great deal, I hope you know that this entire board cares very much and knows that we are struggling to have competitive wages and are committed to doing that. But as my colleague Ms. Reed has said in prior conversations in the forum, this is not the time, and the optics alone are problematic. And this is not about a lack of political courage or will, but it is about my integrity and my commitment to saying that having an independent review was the right way to go about it. And without that, I just can't support tonight's proposal.
Ms. Hines, followed by Ms. Smith.
Okay, thank you. Well, I really want to thank Mr. Moon for stepping out first and putting this on the table for us, putting this on the agenda. It has been too long since the school board looked at this, and I think that's why the percentages look so tough and they look so large, because we're starting from $20,000. I mean, just think about that for a minute, you know. Any raise that's really going to make a difference is going to be a large percentage raise. You know, that's just the way it is. Remember, we're at $20,000, and that is the size of the raise that the Board of Supervisors just gave themselves. They just gave themselves a raise equal to the salary that we make right now. So if you talk about this in terms of percentages, I think you're missing the more important point. It's tough for me to listen to teachers. I get it. I'm a teacher, you know. And I know that they've had a tough time. We've all had a tough time over the last several years. But I know that this board and this superintendent are committed to digging out of that, whatever it takes. And I also know that if this board and this superintendent could go directly to the community and raise the money that we need to fund this school system, we would not be in the position we are in. Our teachers would be fairly compensated. They would be at the high part of the range regionally. You know, we would be treating them much better. But the fact is, in Virginia, we have another layer of politicians that we have to go through to get the funding that we need for our school system. That's why our teachers have not been paid as well as they should be over the last several years. And I would say also, you know, to the teachers out there, the reason that I support a raise in the school board salary, and I'll tell you, I don't think $32,000 is enough, but the reason I do is because I want more teachers on this board. Let me just tell you the story, my story, of how you go from the classroom in Fairfax County Public Schools to the boardroom. You quit your job. You quit your teaching job because you have to. That's a conflict of interest. So you go from a teacher salary, which we know is not enough to live on around here, to $20,000 a year. You can't do it. And so you have to take another job. And then you have to take another job. I mean, I happen to be the only breadwinner in my household. So I have this job. And then I have a job out in Loudoun County working as an aide, full-time job out there. And I tutor. So for all those teachers out there who are working 3 jobs, I feel you. I'm doing it too. I know exactly what you're going through. And if you think that it's easy for me to encourage other teachers in Fairfax County Public Schools to do this, and I'm trying because I know that we need that voice on this board, I'm batting 0 in trying to convince teachers to do what I've done because it's kind of crazy, right? I'm telling them, quit your job, make peanuts, get another job somewhere else. They can't make it work. They cannot make the numbers work for their families. I've tried it. And it breaks my heart because I can't convince them to do it. Who can do this? Who can do this? It's a narrowing slice of our community who can afford to do this. My predecessor got up tonight and spoke to us, and he mentioned that he had a stay-at-home mom for a wife. That's how he was able to do it. Well, how many people have that luxury anymore in this community? Not many. Mr. Moon is absolutely right. The slice of this community that can even seriously consider doing this job is just much too small, and it's getting smaller. That's why we have to do a better job here. I had a few other things that I wanted to, you know, and the difference between our salary and the salary of the Board of Supervisors and all the other supports that they have their own offices, they have 5 or 6 staff members. That's not, to me, that's not us whining because that's not a question of fairness. That's a question of the power balance. You know, we represent the school system. We advocate for the school system. We have a constitutional authority in Virginia to oversee this school system. And we do, therefore, oversee a larger organization than the county government does. A larger budget, more employees, significantly more physical space in the county. And yet, I just don't have the same resources that my counterpart on the Board of Supervisors does. I can't do this full time. I have a wonderful half administrative assistant. She's terrific, but that's my personal staff, a half of an administrative assistant. And that matters. You know, we always feel like we're going to the Board of Supervisors with our hat in our hand, and I think the paying school board members so little is a reflection of the value that we put on public education in general in this country. And I think that's true here as well. You know, you have to pay people a respectable wage because that respects the office. Just a couple other things. I'm sorry, I know I'm taking a while, but this is the first and last time we'll have to talk about this. Comparing our salary to other school boards, I think you can do that in a lot of different ways. You can slice that a lot of different ways. But remember, we are the 10th largest school system in the country. And when you compare us to other systems this large, I think one of our speakers talked about it tonight, We have, in the top 10, we have other school systems in the country that are paying over $40,000 salary to their school board members. Some pay nothing, and you know what? Shame on them. They must not expect very much from their school board, and that's too bad. Because if you have a system that size and you're asking for pure volunteers, then you get what you pay for. I think we want to be able to attract the best people at every level of this school system. We're not trying to get rich at 37,000, 32,000, wherever we end up tonight. This is still not a job. It's a calling, right? The average household income in Fairfax County is over $100,000. This is not a job. This is not something you can live on, even at $40,000. But it makes it possible to do this and to do another part-time job and to pay your bills. And that's the idea, is to make this available, legitimately available to more people. I think the idea that we could somehow get more people to run by making running easier, I'm not even sure I understand. I mean, yeah, it'd be great if running were easier, but shouldn't running for office be competitive? Shouldn't it be sort of difficult? I don't think that would solve our problem. I think we need to, I need to be able to convince people in the community to run for this board, particularly teachers and other people with professional experience, by making it fiscally possible, personally, for them to do it. So I will support the 32,000, but I'm disappointed for the future of the school system that we're not going higher.
Ms. Hines, may I just say that you actually have a third of an administrative assistant because Ms. Hook helps you, Mr. Stork, and myself. Thank you.
Ms. Smith.
This does become your full-time job because you have a passion for it, and you spend a lot of time at it, and there's a lot of demands. I've done this since 2002, and I've seen the changes that technology have created. I've gone to a lot of PTAs and talked to people to get feedback, and some people are for it and some people are opposed. And I've thought about it a lot and where I would be. And the General Assembly has made it difficult for school boards because you can only do it once every 4 years, and typically we don't do it for every 8 years. But I think when I look at where we are right now and the morale of our staff, that I'm going to have to vote no on this. As much as I appreciate the comments of my colleagues and where we are with this, I don't think this is the time we can do this. Thank you.
Mr. Velkoff.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, there's been a fair amount of talk about the raise that the supervisors gave themselves. I noted in the paper that a couple of them that have full-time jobs did not support the raise. And having a full-time job myself, I feel like I'm in an analogous position. And of course, it's easy to vote against a raise when you're completely financially secure. But this is not about me. It's about colleagues on the board, and it's about future citizens who will be on this board. I've benefited, and I've said this before, I've benefited many times from the advice and counsel of one of my colleagues who just spoke, who is very recently from the classroom. And as she pointed out, any FCPS teacher who wants to be on the board has to give up his or her job to serve. Now, let's just take a hypothetical example, because I don't know Ms. Hines' situation, but let's just say, for instance, that you're a single person on a single income of $60,000, right? Think about what kind of sacrifice is being asked of such a person to work for $20,000. I mean, it's service, but it shouldn't require someone to foreclose on their mortgage. Having said that, I took note of one of the speakers, and so I do want to reassure people that we actually do listen to the comments, even on the day of the vote. And I was particularly struck by a comment made by Mrs. Ziegler, and I hope she's watching or will at least hear about this. She asked us to come up with a way of evaluating ourselves. And I thought, you know, she's right about that. I think all of us should have to come up with a set of smarter goals and have an evaluation, some form of evaluation of ourselves and our collective work every year. And with that thought in mind, I would just like to put everyone on notice that this has spurred me to plan to submit a forum topic. And in the context of the discussion that we are having tonight, I hope that you will support that when I bring that forward. Next, I'd like to comment on a frequent comment that we get from the public. And I mean, it's quite often of the form, well, if you vote for a raise, I'm just not going to vote for you. And I respect that. And, you know, if I'm losing your vote tonight by supporting this raise, you know, you're doing your work as a citizen and I'm doing mine, because ultimately accountability does come at the ballot box. However, I would say that when we're talking about the accountability of the people that are sitting here, and if you're willing to look at the totality of the work of the 12 people sitting here, my 11 colleagues, I offer you this review. First of all, this board has a vision. This board had a vision of what the future of FCPS could be. We didn't go out and just hire a manager to maintain the status quo. We identified the qualities needed in a transformational leader who was aligned with our vision and who could make it a reality. We have fixed problems. We've addressed issues that festered for years and that were highly emotional and very divisive in this community, which I remember very well, very clearly from 4 years ago. And those include, among many, student discipline, high school start times, full-day Mondays, transparency of the budget, and there's more. There are also many accomplishments which are incomplete and in progress, and those include more comprehensive auditing, authentic assessment of our students, portrait of a graduate, and a strategic plan. I will also say that this board has realized that many of the problems that we face are ultimately outside our authority to solve, which requires that our school board become lobbyists on behalf of our children and on behalf of public education. Because we have taken care of some of these highly emotional local issues, it is freeing us up to act more actively as advocates on the state and national level for problems in education. And that list is long. It includes assessment and the SOL process. It includes funding, the achievement gap, the underfunding of compensation for employees, and the list goes on. And again, these are things that we have certainly a very important role to play, but we can't solve them unless we affect state and national policies, which we are starting to affect. So I'm proud to have been of this board, and if the citizens out there are holding us accountable, if you're willing to look at beyond one issue, the one that we're voting on tonight, I ask you to look at the work of the board in its totality. Thank you.
Ms. Schultz.
This is going to take a while. You can turn that thing off. You know, some of my colleagues have done a very good job of, yeah, see, you restarted it, have done a very good job. And right now, the school board members are paid less than the lowest paid janitor in Fairfax County Public Schools. And I saw a lot of frustration from a number of our constituents this evening, and in some emails that we're getting about the percentage of this raise. The problem is that if you are upset, or you have a concern, or you have a desire to see something change in the school system, whether it's class sizes, teacher pay, teacher compensation, benefits, online textbooks, 1,000 trailers, a lack of a strategic plan, facilities issues, the overcrowding of your school. The only way that gets changed is by somebody who is one of these 12 committing their time to it. And yes, we have the latitude to commit the time, and you have the latitude to hold us accountable. I have to say, I don't think we all work the same amount of hours, but you want somebody who has the capability to devote the time that's necessary to handle the complexity. With regard to a former colleague who spoke this evening, in 1996 and before, FCPS did not resemble what FCPS is today. It is not the same population. That's when population was low, money was high, the demographics were easy, and land was cheaper. It was a lot easier, frankly, to be a school board member if there is no computer and there is no phone for anybody to reach you with any of their concerns. You know, it's you know, where in the world is, you know, Carmen Sandiego or my school board member? It's difficult enough to engage the public now with the technology that we have, but those who do engage us, and I take very, very seriously the effort to engage, both as the chairman of the Public Engagement Committee and as a board member. I've done, you know, a dozen or more student town halls. I've been in the schools with the students. I've done citizen town halls. I've done community office hours. I've had more citizens tell me that they've never seen a school board member in their history of living here 25, 35 or more years ever go and reach into the community. You cannot get that on a continuing basis with the complexity that exists with approaching 200,000 students, with the demographic needs, with how many languages? I forget how many languages, over 200 languages, every country basically on the planet represented in Fairfax County. And if anybody thinks from a statistic that was quoted earlier this evening in the testimony, that 40% of NSBA, National School Board Association board members, serve 40 hours a month. Well, you know, I don't know if those are the types of school districts where we go to NSBA meetings and we meet superintendents who are a superintendent of a school system where the whole school system is 1,005 students. 1,005 students in an entire school system. You know what? That's an easy to be a volunteer and an unpaid school board member for. I have almost 1,005 students in my child's elementary school. And we've got 190, you know, more and counting of those schools. The complexities and the needs of our constituents mean that you want somebody on this board who has a skill set who can handle those complexities. And Mr. Moon brought up the diversity in terms of the gender on this board that has changed over the years. And I'd like to point out that there are only 3 board members who have children right now in Fairfax County Public Schools. And I'm telling you, it makes a difference. It makes a difference in the connectedness and the understanding. Not that my colleagues can't understand, but if you cannot have parents serve, and I am the only board member who has a high school student, a middle school student, and an elementary school student, and there is a complexity of being a parent of a current student in the school system and a nuance that you bring to board discussions that makes for the whole picture. And I've had more parents tell me that there's no way they could possibly consider serving because the full-time job of being a parent is impeded by the notion that this is a part-time job. My 10 hours yesterday must have been, my bill for the month, according to some of the speakers. That being said, I am very concerned when I look at, and I did this extemporaneously tonight, with the number of speakers who come out as a percentage, and you look at the number of voters that there are in Fairfax County. And in our 2011 election, there were 685,349 voters, registered voters, although 850,000 were eligible. Nobody here won by more than 20% of the vote in their district. 20%. So if there was a 32 or 33, I don't remember the total turnout, 32 or 33% turnout, we have board members who are sitting up here who won with 19% of the vote, 17% of the vote, 11% of the vote. And that's disheartening when the only time somebody's paying attention is when a discussion about the comparable salary to get the skill set that you all need to fix a lot of the problems that you want taken care of that maybe have not been taken care of by maybe some of the very people that are sitting up on this dais, excluding no one and including no one by reference. So if you're not happy with some of the things that are going on as a part of 54% almost of the county's budget, of a $2.6 billion enterprise, of an enterprise that takes care of 187,000 students, of 45,000 employees, is the largest employer in the Commonwealth, that has more buses than Greyhound nationwide, that serves probably 500,000 in terms of the population that have community use services over our facilities, and so on, then don't let a third of the board this time go uncontested. Three of us are sitting up here because we had no one at all. And again, this speaks to our former colleague who spoke tonight and said, oh, there's plenty of people who will do this. There are not. And so I take this very, very seriously. I've been racked with, the difficulty of this process. I am not happy with my colleagues, and Ms. McLaughlin spoke to some of it. I am not happy with the fact that a public hearing was scheduled for this evening, and we have no time to reflect and discuss amongst ourselves the comments this evening. And that's a huge problem. And that is squarely on our shoulders on how the process was handled. But if somebody is upset with us about process, that I can definitely understand. But you have got to want and demand somebody to run a major endeavor and have the skill set necessary who is worth more to the constituents, the voters, the taxpayers, to be a steward over your money that's quickly approaching $3 billion, who has a greater price tag than the lowest paid janitor.
Any other comments? Ryan. Mr. McElveen, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So tonight's discussion is our own localized version of a vibrant, ongoing global philosophical debate to which no one around the world really has found a definitive answer, and that is, how much should citizens pay their leaders? And unfortunately, as you can see, I'm afraid we aren't going to make an unequivocal end to that debate tonight. But as you have seen through the testimony and comments, there are serious arguments on both sides of this debate. However, in researching this issue, I've seen and shared with many of my colleagues that a vast majority of studies by economists with the National Bureau of Economic Research and other institutions show that higher public official salaries will bring better and more talented candidates into politics, just like higher salaries would do for all education professionals. Nowhere has this issue been more publicly debated than in Singapore, where Lee Kuan Yew, who we lost a couple weeks ago, led the charge to pay politicians what they could be making in the private sector so that he could recruit the best people to government service and ensure that young people could aspire to government service. Now in Singapore, top leaders make close to $2 million, and polls show that people in Singapore perceive their government as extremely honest, far more so than Americans perceive their own government. One of the most interesting studies of this issue comes from Brazil, where the Constitution was amended in 2004 to change the salaries of local politicians so that some in some areas of the country earned higher salaries than others. After tracking the education levels, professions, and wealth of those who ran for office, they then tracked how they performed in their positions, both in the high-salaried positions and lower-salaried positions. The politicians with higher pay passed more bills. They were better at securing resources for their constituents. They were also better educated and more experienced. But tonight's discussion isn't about this global debate. It's about our local conditions. And as everyone knows, our decision tonight unfortunately combines two of the things most demonized in American public discourse today. Number one, elected officials, and more importantly for our purposes, public education. I partially blame Mark Twain for this, who a century ago said that in the first place God made idiots, that was for practice, then he made school boards. Put simply, there is a lack of respect for what we do as educators, and an even greater lack of respect for what we do as education public officials. The fact that we have had more people sign up to testify, to protest potential school board raises tonight than showed up to testify before the Board of Supervisors to support our school system budget is emblematic of this critical American paradox. For example, another case of this is the disparate ways that people view us from other public officials. At the public hearing prior to the salary increase by the Board of Supervisors, as you've heard tonight, a grand total of 3 people showed up. One person didn't speak, so they had 2. And guess what? Their salary increase was almost double what is being proposed for us tonight. So what you're witnessing tonight is not just a disrespect of school board members. It is disrespect of public education and all of us who engage in that work. Trust me, I have no problem with people disrespecting school board members. We get it all the time. But it is important to remember that respect starts at the top. The way school board members are treated reflects the value that the community places on all of the employees in our system, from the superintendent down to the classroom. And the current climate of disrespect of our school system and of public education is not cool with me. If we continue to be viewed as second-class citizens by society, and more importantly, by the Board of Supervisors that supposedly is there to support us, that's to no one's advantage in this system. That lack of respect is consistently transferred to our employees in the form of inadequate funding to use for their compensation increases. As several of our speakers tonight mentioned, we should all be in this together to fight for the respect of public education. So tonight's discussion is not just about us up here. It's about you, our teachers, our cafeteria workers, our custodians, our bus drivers, our principals, and our families. For our employees who are witnessing this tonight, I only hope you know that we hold more respect for you than American society does for all of us as public officials and as educators. I know that everyone at this dais wants better pay for our employees. I, for one, think that the position of teacher should be the highest paid in society. But that won't happen until we restore society's respect for the work that we all do together. Tonight, as my colleagues are aware, I will be voting against my conscience. I will vote against doing what is right. Instead, I will be voting to represent the many members of our community who have reached out to us and, in a sense, devalued our work and failed to realize that the school board advocates for everyone in our school system. I will vote no to represent all of those who believe that public education isn't worth the money, that all the facets of our organization, from our bus drivers to our superintendent, aren't worth the respect of society. The question we should be asking tonight isn't whether the community wants a second-class school board. If that's what the community wants, then they will only receive a second-class school system. Tonight, we're talking about how much we're paid, but we haven't really taken much time to talk about the price we pay as public servants in American society. Our privacy is invaded, our free time is non-existent, our family lives are uprooted. For those of us who work another job, our vacation days are almost entirely spent on school board work sessions and daytime school events. I cannot look into the face of students today and encourage them to be public servants because of what I've experienced. Don't get me wrong, I love what I do just as all of us do, but I can't imagine many others enjoying it. Maybe, just maybe, my no vote tonight will result in one fewer expletive-laden voicemail, one fewer person interested in hacking my family's computers and utility accounts, one fewer person prank calling my house in the middle of the night so incessantly that the phone has to be unhooked. Just maybe. We might not be here for the money, as Mr. Moon said, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be accorded basic human dignity. We shouldn't be punished for seeking to serve our community. And the current system punishes all of us. So next year, when our board chairman presents our budget to the Board of Supervisors, and those supervisors dismiss our presentation by looking down, doodling, and smirking like we're second-class citizens, I encourage our FCPS community of public educators to remember this conversation about respect and the lack thereof. And you'll understand why so many of my colleagues are so passionate about this issue, and why you should have been too.
Mr. Stork.
Thank you. It has been absolutely my pleasure to serve as a school board member these past almost 12 years. And I regrettably won't be serving going forward because I've chosen to run for another office. But that doesn't mean that I haven't enjoyed every moment of it. It also means, though, that I believe that appropriate compensation is important. I want to thank those individuals who came here tonight to speak to us. I know that it isn't always comfortable doing that, whether you're older or younger, speaking to a board and speaking passionately about an issue, particularly one where ultimately those individuals are your boss, is probably never the easiest thing to do. But let me assure you that we respect those voices even when we disagree with them, and we really require, we demand, we need you to be part of the dialogue, part of the conversation that we're having here tonight. It does involve you, and Mr. McElveen spoke to that, and particularly in one particular way at least, and I think in a heartfelt way. Another way I'd like to approach it, though, is to discuss really what we are and what I think you are, and again, what he also highlighted. We are professionals, just like our teachers, just like our staff members, just like our administrators. As professionals, we recognize that we need to be compensated at a level that's appropriate to that particular group of individuals. In this case, as professionals and representing you all in the education interests of Fairfax County on this board, we've fought for a lot of things. Number one, I made particular motions to this board, and this board has accepted that challenge to make sure that the wages for our staff are one of our highest priorities, and we've made it our highest priority in the last few years. But again, as most of you know, we do not have any ability to fund ourselves. We are at the mercy of the state and county governments for our funding, with some federal money as well. We all recognize how poorly the state funds our educational system in this state. The Commonwealth of Virginia is the seventh richest state in the country, is my understanding, but we fund our education level at about the 44th level of other states in the Commonwealth. And that doesn't even begin to talk about the funding levels that Fairfax County gets versus those of other parts of the state. Even nearby neighbors, where we receive about 20% of our funding from the state, our nearby neighbors get 45% of their funding from the state. So that puts an undue burden, an extra burden on Fairfax County taxpayers, which clearly is wrong and clearly is not what any of us want. But we also recognize that the Board of Supervisors then play the critical role in the level of funding that our schools get. That level of funding ultimately results in what we can afford to pay our staff. So you're talking to folks who deeply believe, as you do, that funding and that our wages levels are not competitive and they need to be changed. This board clearly has the same challenges. And those challenges are, we are professionals, we advocate for you, we're not here for the money, but yet the money does help to make it easier to be here. For me, I have a full-time business that I own along with some partners, and they have been willing to accept my, let's say, not always ability to be at work, as well as my colleagues have accepted some of the very late hours and early hours that I've communicated with them, because that is the time that we have available to serve the public and to try to meet those needs. I'm not saying that for anything more than the recognition that it is a difficult job that deserves, in my eyes at least, a minimum pay level. I frankly, and I've advised my colleagues, I was willing to support anything that this board provided a majority to, meaning that I wanted it to be at least a 7 vote out of the 12 folks who sit in front of you. And my expectation is that we will get that. I'm going to vote in favor of this amendment. If we don't get 7 votes for this amendment, then I don't know how we'll pass the next motion, because I don't believe I'll be able to support that, because it will be obvious that this board will not be able to come to terms with a wage increase. I would regret that deeply, but in the end, we have to stand up and say we're willing to fund a wage that we think is at least reasonable. And I think $32,000 is not unreasonable, and I can clearly support that. I ask for you all to think long and hard about this. This is not some cause that Don Quixote is leading into the fray. This is a tough decision that each of us need to make, and one that will reflect and will have a real consequence to our colleagues. So we need 7 votes if we're going to make this work, and I urge you to do that, and I will be happy to join you as part of that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Lateef.
Thank you. After listening during the public hearing and after listening to seeing what the school board members themselves have to say, I asked that members of the community, I have no skin in this game, obviously. I don't get paid to the level of the school board members, and the student representative salary hasn't been touched in 25 years. However, if I was a member of the community and my only knowledge of what the school board members did was in the Washington Post Metro section, that was the extent of my experience with the school board, I would be categorically against this, absolutely. Why would these politicians want to increase their own salary? It's ridiculous. However, that's not my position. I spent the last 8-9 months working with the 12 individuals to my right, and if they truly stuck to the job description, if they truly stuck to the fact that a school board member is supposed to have a part-time job, they'd be awful members of the school board, and none of them are awful. They put work in. Some people respond to emails instantaneously. They put hours and hours and hours. Even as the student representative job, I'm supposed to be at 2 meetings a week. I put in 54 hours. I just determined in March. So if I do that, imagine what they do. So personally, I think a $12,000 increase is absolutely justified. People should not have to put in sacrifices to serve on the school board, and once you serve on the school board, you should not have to leave it if you're financially unable to do that. We need the best people on this school board for the future of Fairfax County, and if it means an increase of just $12,000, I think that's an investment the public should support and must support. So I don't have a vote here, but I'd definitely vote to give you another 12. Thank you.
All right, I'll speak before I do go backs. I'm going to follow in some of my colleagues' footsteps, Pat's in particular, and tell a personal story, and then tag on to what Ms. Schultz said and say that, you know, we do need a parent voice on this board as well. And so I'll tell you this parents week. Monday, 10 hours, Tuesday, 7, Wednesday, 9, today, 14. Tomorrow, probably 5. Saturday, we retreat at 8 hours. And then to prepare for Monday's all-day work session, which will be 8 hours, on Sunday, it'll probably take me about 3 hours to get prepared. So my total hours worked this week was 56 hours. What did I do? What will I do? I met with teachers' associations. I had a town hall meeting on facilities and potential programming. I dealt with several constituents' issues, planned for tonight's meeting and future meetings with staff. I was briefed by the county on one of our joint committees. With the help of staff, I wrote a newsletter, planned my community coffee next week. Tomorrow I'm meeting with a congressman to brief him on FCPS's growing enrollment and changing demographics. And I gave a little 20-minute speech to the Board of Supervisors this week. Is this a typical week? I have to say yes. As the chair, this is my typical week. It was also very typical for me when I sat as the vice chair and just as a member of the board. What did I miss? I missed 2 constituent meetings, a meeting with one of our committees here. I missed a rally, and I missed 2 chorus performances by my daughter, and we had 0 family dinners together this week. Is this typical? Yeah, it is. It's because of my passion to volunteer in the schools and in the broader community that other community leaders approached me and asked me and convinced me after a year and a half that I should run for this position. Did I choose to run for this office? Yes, I did. Am I humbled that I sit here? Yes, I am. Am I honored to be given this opportunity? Indeed. Double yes, I am. I took this position knowing the salary, and I was prepared for the commitment, and I still am. And I'll keep on this board if I am lucky enough to get elected a second time. But as I look toward future boards, I do want to ensure that those with a passion will not turn away and will not, because of a lack of financial support, emotional support, or a lack of stay-at-home spouse support, cannot do it. I've been called what Mark Twain said by many of my friends, an idiot for serving here. You're crazy. Why do you do this? But then they give me a hug and they thank me, and I'm thrilled to be able to do that. So, you know, that's my personal story that I'm sharing. So many of my colleagues were sharing a broader reason to have this, and I don't want to repeat that. But one thing I think it is clear to me is that one of the things we haven't done very well as a board, and my work and my profession is marketing and communications. And that's what I worked in for 23 years before staying at home for a while and then coming on this board and working part-time. But what we have not done very well is educate our community on the work we do, what's involved, what's expected, and there really appears to be some confusion about our ability to provide compensation for our employees. I think so many have said this board has advocated. We are the people who care so much about you that we want to be your strong advocates. And every year we have done this, at least on this tenure that I've sat on this boards. We have never ignored your needs. Please refer back to the speech that I gave 2 days ago. We are adamant about how we hope you can be treated and how you can be compensated, because we know that our employees are the heart of our system, and we know that the teachers are the heart of our classroom, and we know that without you and without high quality, that's why we are fighting for your compensation. We can't raise our own funds. You know that. So I sit here with 11 other passionate professionals, and what do we have? We have lawyers, we have teachers, we have small business owners, we have social workers, we have a gamut of people who have decided to do this for one reason or another, and I'm proud to have served, with you. Each day, so what we have before us is a proposed solution to one of the issues before us. And one day when none of us are here anymore, but watching a new board, I want to know that at least one barrier to running has been helped in that new board. So I'm hoping to, even with all of that, I hope to be able at some point to aspire others to lead in public service and community service, because it's so very, very important. And I want them to be able to do it proudly, emotionally secure, and hopefully a little bit more financially secure by instituting this raise tonight. Ms. Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a lot of discussion we've had. We've had testimony, we've had emails, and we're talking about 0.01% of our budget. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? So why is it that, that we have had such emotional reactions. And it makes me wonder, what's the underlying issue here that we're really trying to address? Is it the value and worth of the school board? The value of public education and public advocacy? I mean, it's clear we all have passion for our jobs. We're not doing it for the money. Many of us have advanced degrees. Many of us have other jobs, other businesses. So we're doing this because we love it. I like to say that I feel the honor and the burden of public service. I think the real issue, in my view, is that there is a disconnect in the expectations that people have for the school board, particularly as it relates to a comparison with the Board of Supervisors. As Mr. Moon alluded to, I don't know how long ago that was now, over an hour ago, you know, with the advent of technology, I believe that people expect instantaneous results from us. I don't think they understand that when they call the main office, that we don't have an office there. The Board of Supervisors has a staff totaling 75 to help them do their jobs. Our school board office has 11.5. The Board of Supervisors has a budget of $7 million to help them do their jobs. Our budget in the school board is $1.7 million. But it makes me wonder, are the expectations different? And I'm not sure they are. I think the public expects a certain level of service, and they've come to expect it. And the salary, I think, is a piece of this, as my colleagues have alluded, and I'll just read from something we heard tonight. Pay scales are a way of valuing not only the person who holds a job, but the importance and significance of the job itself and of those who are served by it. By depressing the wages of our school board, we devalue the youngest in our society and devalue our schools in general. So my colleagues, I bet, are feeling a little puzzled, saying, what on earth is she saying? Where is she going with this? Do I think we deserve more pay for the type of work that we do? Probably. Do I think this is the time to advocate for a raise? No. Given the compensation challenges we've had with our employees, I don't think the timing is right. I feel that sacrifice and leadership have to start at the top. This is not an easy decision, but I think it's the right one. At the end of the day, I think I said this back at the first forum months ago, if I had my druthers, if we couldn't raise our salary, I view another option as cutting back on our role. Maybe we shouldn't try to be everything to everybody, but you know what? I don't think any of us can do that. We do it because we love it, and we do whatever it takes to do the job and do it well. So in terms of other people, I'm not sure this is a marketing announcement for those people who might like to run for a board and feel the honor and burden of public service, but this is the reality of what we're dealing with. And the salary is one issue. Is it the underlying issue about value? I have to say, as a parting note, I told one of the supervisors recently, I said, you know, someone came up to me and said, you know, I view the school board as the JV and the supervisors as the varsity. And that supervisor turned to me and said, I agree. And there you have it. Until that dynamic changes, I'm not sure that our situation will change with our colleagues who are our funding sources. So that is my candid and honest description of the lay of the land. But at the end of the day, I'm voting no.
I think I have one go back. Ms. McLaughlin.
So briefly, I think it was really important to just clarify a prior point made. When you look at the landscape of what it takes for any politician to run in this country, from the highest office of President of the United States to Congress, all the way down to the Virginia State Senate seats that compensate at $20,000 a year, but they're raising $1 million to try and win that 2-year office. As a first-time candidate 4 years ago, I was guided to raise $50,000 for a school board race. That was the expectation placed on me. So when I spoke earlier about trying to make it easier to run It's not about getting out there and having voters know who I am. It's the financial pressure being put on candidates to say, you want to run for office? Here's the fundraising expectations we have on you. Anyone at this table who thinks that doesn't scare people away, I don't know what math they're doing, because that is very real. And it is a big piece of what makes people worried. So when we talk about who can take these jobs and get compensated $20,000 a year, who's going to be looking in the face of a $50,000 campaign price tag? That's scary first. So I do think we have to correct that. I do think that we have a responsibility as elected officials to start asking ourselves, what's with the arms race to run and serve? Be it at the school board level, all the way to the top. But for tonight's conversation, what I have really heard my colleagues say reinforces my position from the very beginning. Everyone's made an excellent point about the hard work we do. But the bottom line is we are elected to serve Fairfax County citizens. And for better, for worse, the response that we have gotten from the majority of the public who has contacted us is, we don't understand why you believe you deserve, whether now it's a $60,000 increase. We did not have an opportunity to educate and engage the public appropriately. I said it before, you get an independent review group to do it, you get a chance to help educate the public, and it's an objective voice. This dialogue, however well-intentioned, the bottom line is the public has not asked us to be a full-time school board, and they've not asked us to raise our salaries, and that sits very heavily with me tonight.
All right, we have a proposed amendment on the table put out by Mr. Moon, seconded by Ms. Evans. I move to amend the main motion by striking the annual salary figure of $37,500 and inserting $32,000. We will now take a vote on this. All those in favor of this amendment? That is Moon, McElveen, Hines, Darnett, Koufax, Velkov, Stork, Strauss, Evans, and Schultz. That passes. Oh, I'm sorry. Opposed is Reed, Smith, and McLaughlin. And that's everyone. All right. Now, since that amendment passed, we are back to the main motion. And the main motion now reads, I move that effective January 1st, 2016, the annual school board salary for each member of Fairfax County School Board be set at $32,000 and that the school board chairman be paid an additional annual salary of $2,000. All those in favor of this motion? I've got Moon, Hines, Darnett, Koufax, Velkov, and Evans. All those opposed? I've got Reed, McElveen, Smith, McLaughlin. Abstentions? I've got Stork, Strauss, and Schultz. The motion fails.
Madam Chair, could you give us the vote count? Could you give us the vote count?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, go ahead. Tell me. We've got 5 yeses. 4 noes, 3, so the vote passes. My biggest apologies. This vote passes, my miscount. The next agenda item is confirmation of action taken in a closed meeting. This is the portion of the meeting where the board will confirm any action regarding issues that were discussed in the closed meeting. These issues may include action taken regarding student disciplinary matters. Board members have discussed each individual case, and at this time will make several motions to confirm the recommended action. I call on Ms. Evans for a motion.
I move to grant in part the school reassignment appeal of a student who possessed and distributed an illegal drug on school property and modify the disciplinary decision of the division superintendent.
I second.
Seconded by Ms. Reed. All those in favor? Moon, Reed, McElveen, Daranack, Koufax, Stork, Strauss, Evans. Opposed? Ms. Smith, abstentions? Valkoff, McLaughlin, and Schultz. The motion passes. I'm sorry. Ms. Hines? Ms. Hines abstained. I call on Ms. Strauss for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move to deny the school reassignment appeal of a student who threatened and bullied other students and to confirm the disciplinary decision of the division superintendent.
Second, sorry.
Seconded by Mr. Stork. All those in favor of the motion? Moon, Reed, McElveen, Hines, Smith, Daranack, Koufax, Stork, Strauss, Evans. Opposed? Abstentions? Velkoff, McLaughlin, and Schultz. The motion passes. Moving on to our consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules, provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval of the board by a single motion. Many items listed have gone through board review and documentation has been provided to all members and public in advance. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and the request of any board member prior to the meeting. 5.01, approve the minutes of March 26, 2015, the regular school board meeting. Update the strategic governance 5.02, update the strategic governance manual as detailed in the agenda item. 5.03, award a contract for the Fort Belvoir Elementary School 2 and modifications to existing Fort Belvoir Elementary School 1 project to Branch Daffin in the amount of $21,599 and authorize the division superintendent or the assistant superintendent of facilities and transportation services to execute and administer the contract on behalf of the school board. Are there any objections to this? Hearing and seeing no objections, the consent agenda is approved. And I understand, Mr. Stork, you want to make a comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to just really advise our constituents that the Fort Belvoir Elementary School has been overcrowded for many, many years. There's been advocacy on my part and others to get the Department of Defense to add another building, to either build on to the existing school or build a new school. And for years, they've said that's the responsibility of Fairfax County taxpayers. I've never felt that way, given that it's going to be on the Fort Belvoir post. And I'm just so pleased that the Department of Defense stepped up and was willing to provide really the funding, because essentially is the funding from them to build this building, because the school's been overcrowded for many years, and this really provides an opportunity. And all members of the military who are on post to send their children to a school that's on post, and that is a great benefit to them, and I know they're extremely pleased and looking forward to the opening of the school in September 2016. Thank you.
Next on to new business. The following items are new business items. There will not be a vote tonight on these items, but action is scheduled at a future meeting. 6.01, approve the Career and Technical Education Management System for the 2015-2016 application for Career and Technical Education Fund. 6.02, approved at the 2015-2016 Annual Special Education Plan, Section 611, Part B, Grant Funding Application, and Section 619, Part B, Preschool Grant Funding Application as detailed in the agenda item. 6.03, adopt Policy 2202, Admissions, Residency, and Attendance Eligibility for Enrollment as detailed in the agenda item. 6.04, 6.04, approve guidelines for the election of school board chair and vice chair as detailed in the agenda item and update the strategic governance manual accordingly. 6.05, approve term limits for, excuse me, my computer, 1 second. Approve term limits for school board members serving in the chair or vice chair position as detailed in the agenda item and update the strategic governance manual accordingly. 6.06, authorize the division superintendent and the assistant superintendent, Department of Facilities and Transportation Services, either of whom may act without the other, to take all actions necessary and appropriate in consultation with legal counsel for the school division to pursue approval for proffered condition amendment application number PCA 76-M-007-02, including negotiating, signing, and submitting the final proffer statement and any other documents on behalf of the board. And next we have superintendent matters. Dr. Garza.
I'm going to forego my full comments. I just want to thank everyone who attended Tuesday, the hearing with the Board of Supervisors, and then again last night. Hoping there's a good, strong contingent there as well tonight. I want to thank our Madam Chairman. I think she did a great job in representing the needs of our school system. I hope they're taking it seriously. Let me just say, I hope they're taking it seriously. I'm also very proud of McLean, particularly McLean high school teachers. They showed up in mass last night. I think there were about 20 McLean high school teachers there that had signed up to speak, and they did an outstanding job representing their school and the larger FCPS, so we're very proud of them and appreciate their willingness to step up and represent the needs of our schools and our students. So again, just thanks to everyone who've communicated with our supervisors or participated in the process. It's important for your voice to be heard. Our schools are severely underfunded, and excellence is at risk.
Thank you, Dr. Garza. Next on the agenda is board reports, and Ms. Evans is not here, so we'll start with Ms. Schultz. And Ms. Schultz, please talk about the March 11th Public Engagement Committee.
Very brief. There was a recommendation to the board to hold in the fall, late fall, potentially into the new year, regional meetings to solicit engagement from the public on the capital improvement plan. There seems to be, not quite an understanding of the readiness of staff to support that and what necessarily that will mean. So we'll talk about that a little bit more at our work session on Monday. We haven't approved that as a board yet. There was also a recommendation from the Public Engagement Committee to hold back on hosting the Education Summit this fall, primarily due to the fact that we're also having a teen summit. And because of the wild success of the special education summit that was held with over 2,000 students or 2,000 attendees. So the thought was that maybe this fall is a good time to take a pass, give staff a break, and allow us to distribute the work of the board and the work of staff back into classroom and education activities rather than another summit.
All right, Mr. Moon, the March 12th audit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On March 12th, we had an audit committee work session, and at the work session, we discussed the status of current audit work, and there was no significant change since the February 25th meeting. And also received the presentation of FCPS math study, which will be presented actually to the full board on coming Monday at our full day work session. Discuss the audit plan scheduled for both FY 2015, but that is for the balance of this academic year, and FY 2016, as outlined in the agenda. And the next committee meeting is scheduled for April 29. Thank you.
All right, next, Mr. Velkoff on the forum on March 12th.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had 3 topics. that day, and the first one was school board member salary, which was discussed there, and then we just settled that. The second topic had to do with the new class size regulation, and the advocacy was to schedule a follow-up work session to answer remaining questions about the new class size regulation, where the timing could be spring 2015 or school year 2015-16, etc. The consensus that was reached was for the school board chairman to schedule a work session in May of 2015 and another one in the fall of 2015, specifically to answer questions about the new class size regulation. Finally, the third topic was adding gender identity to policy 1450, non-discrimination. And that was driven by a recent Virginia Attorney General opinion that said that school boards have the authority to expand their anti-discrimination policies. The consensus that was reached was for the school board chairman to schedule revisions to policy 1450 for board approval in April of 2015.
Yes, Schultz.
I have a question. Do we have a schedule? I haven't noticed that that has a date for a vote yet. Has that been scheduled by chair and chair notes? I mean, chair meeting?
April 23rd.
Thank you.
Next, facilities and budget, Ms. Patty Reed. March 16th.
To give everyone just a snapshot, we reviewed the third quarter. Upcoming dates are the pre-budget markup on April 14th for the Board of Supervisors, the budget markup on the 21st, and our next work session as a board is April 27th.
Thank you. Ms. Evans is still not back, and I think Ms. Evans? And you know what, we're just going to have to do that at another date. So next we're on to board reports, board matters, excuse me. And I'll start with Mr. Moon. Mr. Moon, do you have any matters, board reports? I mean, excuse me, board matters?
Pass.
Pass, good. Ms. Reed?
Pass.
Mr. McElveen?
So mine is very brief, but I do want to take a moment to thank our friend Lizette for all the work she's done. When she was coming in tonight, she mentioned that she should have been wearing a red coat since she's a traitor. But we will come visit you, and thank you for all you've done for us.
Ms. Smith? Pass. Mr. Velkoff?
Pass.
Ms. McLaughlin?
Just briefly, I wanted to echo my excitement for the Woodson High School community. It was announced just before the spring break that there will be a new principal there, Scott Poole, coming from Lanier Middle School, and he has an outstanding record of service here in Fairfax County's public schools. And I am very excited as both a parent and a school board member who represents Woodson to work with him in the years ahead. And I know the community is very excited about his dynamic leadership, and we're looking forward to seeing him there next week.
Mr. Stork.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to let my colleagues know, as well as the community know, I have community office hours that's been long scheduled for tomorrow, or excuse me, Saturday, 10:30 to 12 at Lorton Library, and then 12:30 to 2:30 at the Sherwood Hall Library. And I will be unable to make the retreat that's currently planned. I know this retreat was rescheduled from a previous Saturday, so that's why the two overlapped. Additionally, wanted to let folks know that we have next Wednesday, we have the fourth and final Region 3 facilities meeting at Whitman Middle School. Starts at 7 o'clock. Encourage all community members who've not had a chance to attend one of these. We've had 3 previous, to please attend and learn and understand how your facility dollars could be spent, because we want your input in that process. And lastly, I wanted to acknowledge and actually identify that we have on the 25th anniversary of Saratoga Elementary School, celebration will be held the week of the 18th, that's a Saturday, from 11 to 1, and invite all to attend and want to congratulate the school for its anniversary and the great job it's done for 25 years in educating our community members and children. Thank you.
Ms. Strauss.
Very briefly, I just want to congratulate again the entire Herndon Pyramid that on March 25th held a series of meetings and celebrations, the fact that they are a community of hope. Very inspiring, and I do encourage other communities in Fairfax County to consider adopting this program. As we saw tonight, fabulous things can go on when we all embrace the other pieces that are beyond the academic piece, and Kids at Hope is a great program. Also, thanks again to the McLean Project for the Arts and our art exhibitions that included the entire McLean Pyramid and the Langley Pyramid. Thanks.
Ms. Schultz.
Yes, so I want to first of all say thank you to Greenbrier East, to Principal Cohen, and to the wonderful staff for the incredible site visit that I had. It was quite a trip down memory lane, having attended Greenbrier East Elementary in 1970, blah, blah, blah. And walking the old corridors and the many, many new corridors which have been added since. So I'm very grateful to you for that time. In addition, on Monday evening, we had a regional community meeting at West Springfield High School with members of the public, parents, citizens, residents, and concerned party members for the Daventry neighborhood and a potential administrative boundary change. I was a little bit sorry that I didn't have any other of my colleagues there, but we have another one next Monday at Lee High School with my colleague, Ms. Darnett Koufax. It was extremely well attended. I'm very grateful to facility staff for basically holding it, which they don't typically do, but Dr. Atwater, as the regional assistant superintendent, and I are novices on an administrative boundary change, and so we appreciate the support of facilities and the support of both regions, and look forward to another successful meeting in advance of any decision of the board. I would like to say a personal thank you to John Foster. You know what I'm thanking you for, and that's enough said. I look forward to upcoming visits to both Sangster Elementary School and my future citizen extension of my citizen community meetings, and there will be a kit message that goes out with the updates on that. And finally, to the ACSD group that I met with, the Committee on Students with Disabilities, and the tremendous work that you've put into the executive function report, which built on the presentation that the board had this evening, and some really solid recommendations that are going to be forthcoming to the board. And finally, my West Springfield High School meeting this week was held on my 24th anniversary, which was part of my part-time job. So I look forward to continuing my all-day work session on Monday, our retreat this weekend, and immediately following my next community meeting on Monday.
And yet the fun continues. The board will now make a motion to go into closed meeting. 1, to discuss the acquisition of real property for a public purpose in connection with an elementary school site and/or disposition of publicly held property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the school board in accordance with Section 2.2-3711A3 of the Code of Virginia, and 2, to discuss and consider the employment, assignment, and performance of specific public employees pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia. Do I have the motion? Ms. Reed, seconded by Ms. Smith. All those in favor? Even though you don't want to be, it is unanimous. Thank you. We are now enclosed for the third time tonight.